is a presentation of Sertoba Media and Comey Media Incorporated. Dallas Cowboys, the offseason says,
acknowledge me.
Welcome to Total Football Talk. Welcome to Total Football Talk. Hard-hitting, glaring action, news, and fun, just the way you like it. I'm one of the co-hosts of this program, Cole Johnson, a.k.a. the Mad Scientist and EP Extraordinaire. And I am joined, as always, by the other co-host of this program, the man who would, in the on-season brand, be Mr. Commander's Ground Report, but in other times of the season, Mr. D. Will in the Evening, Mr. In a Route Sports Debate, the man in charge of the D. Willie Bucks, D. Willie, a.k.a. Drew Willingham. How you doing, my man?
Hey, doing great today, my man. Looking forward to having another great episode with you. Episode 20 is here, and some great things we have to discuss after the Super Wildcard Weekend. Looking forward to breaking it down with you, as always.
Yes, I am too. And let's start it right now. Opening drive, please.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989. On two. Ready? Break.
Now, for those of you that have been under a rock, we are now in the playoff portion of the NFL season. Yes. And it started bright and early, 3:30 p.m. my time, which is Central, 4:30 p.m. Drew's time. He's in the Eastern time zone. The Texans hosting the Browns. Who had that on your bingo card in September? Well, I wish I had nobody, but that's okay. That's all right. Well, it broke down thusly. You had, how can I put this? The Browns confident that they were going to come into NRG Stadium and beat the Texans, because they did, but scored 36-22 on Christmas Eve. They seemed to be very confident to come in, and they were the favorites. Now, why is this? You're saying, why is this, Cole? You're upset of the week? Well, there's a game better suited for that designation. But with this one, the Browns had a 14-10 lead, and then the Texans put up 35 unanswered points. And, I think the Texans just scored another touchdown. And it looks like it was off another pick six of Joe Flacco's. I'm sorry, my bad. The Texans beat the Browns 45-14. C.J. Stroud in his first ever playoff start, 16-21, 274 yards, 3 touchdowns, almost a perfect quarterback rating. And you're going to see almost a similar stat with another game later. Nico Collins caught 6 receptions, 96 yards for a touchdown. The Texas defense, they came up big, 4 sacks and 2 INTs. I did mention those 2 INTs. Joe Flacco, 34-46, 307 yards, a touchdown and 2 picks. Both of them were pick sixes. David Njoku, 7 receptions, 93 yards. Good effort for them. Of course, Amari Cooper, who went for 265 yards in the last game, was held to under 50 in this one. What are your thoughts on this one, sir?
Looking at this game, it really didn't get out of hand until halftime, after halftime. Going into halftime, it was still a pretty close game, but the poise of CJ Stroud and D'Amico Ryans definitely, his tenure as an NFL player coming through and helping this team out. I mean, we both thought, you were the one coming in last week thinking the Texans were going to win this game.
Mhm.
I actually called the Browns to win. I was wrong. So I will, when it comes to the fact of being wrong, Cole Johnson, I owe you something, and I'll give it to you right here.
Acknowledge me.
I will acknowledge the fact that I was mother-fathering wrong with my pick when it comes to the fact of picking the Browns. And going into this halftime game, I mean, we didn't think it was going to implode the way it was, but there was another game that really imploded a little bit worse than this one. This one took place over the second half of the game. The other one that we're going to get to course of the entirety of the game, and I'm really excited to break that one down. But when it comes to this right here, I'm really excited for you. A fan of this team, the Houston Texans team that has definitely seen their tale of woe for 20 years and has had a few flashes in the pan, but right here with this game, CJ Stroud is a rookie stepping it up. I mean, regardless if you don't make it further than what you have in the playoff, you definitely have something to celebrate. And that is a big win that you just had this past week and definitely a promising future that looks like this team is definitely going to have. But once you came back from halftime, you had that 82-yard interception return from Steven Nelson that kind of sealed the deal right there. Even though you got a couple more scores after that, you also had another interception return by Christian Harris to follow that, not long after that, only a couple minutes later, actually.
Right.
And then Devin Singletary had the 19-yard run in the fourth quarter. I mean, they had no answer for it. The Browns, that their defense was definitely – even though they came into the game with a lot of hype and had it all season long, the Texans offense definitely had answers that found the miscues in the defense of the Browns and definitely executed it very well this past weekend. And the Texans definitely get to celebrate that today.
I was amazed. I was amazed at how the Texas offense, it was like they just went through the Browns defense, which came into the game, the number one rated defense in the league. They just went through them like hot butter, like a butter through hot. Like a knife through hot butter. It just was. It seemed easy for them, and I was like, wow. And I didn't even ask, well, where was this? Christmas Eve, because I figured, okay, well, Stroud didn't play that game, but I was like, wow, it was that easy to execute against them. I mean, it looked too easy to me, and. And my thought then was, well, I hope the defense can hold. And boy, in the third quarter, did they ever hold? And I actually talked to my brothers. I said, did the defense have like a boys to men moment? Because they seemed to have it seemed to be that the game, they've had their moments in the first half, but it seemed like the moment was too big for them. And then they seemed to be inspired and they were just on it in the third quarter. If it wasn't the picks, it was a key sack, and if it wasn't a key sack, it was a key third down, the third down stop that they needed. It just seemed as though all things clicked for that defense in the second half, and I'll tell you the reason why I felt that the Texans would beat the Browns, and it wasn't because of my fandom. It was because Joe Flacco. Yes, he did a wonderful job, and he steadied that offense. The Browns needed that offense. But he just turned the ball over too much for me to say, okay, the Browns could beat the Texans, and I had no problem with saying it. Because I figured he was going to turn the ball over a little too much, and the 2 pick sixes right there. Now, did I think that the offense was going to make mincemeat of the Browns defense? No. Not like that. And if I were to say, yeah, I thought that, I'd be lying to you. No. But yes, 45-14, the Texans over the Browns, and they patiently hoped and waited for a good while to see where they would go next. But of course, we will talk about that a little later. Go ahead.
I think the other big thing to take away from this was the lack of running game from the Browns as well.
That's a good point. Yeah.
You look at with what happened with Nick Chubb earlier in the season. Of course, we knew at that moment we were going to see a little bit of an effective part when it came to the running back core. And of course, they bring back Kareem Hunt, who has had flashes in the pan before, did what he did with the Chiefs, then comes to the Browns. I mean, hasn't really played up to the part of where he did with the Chiefs beforehand, but has definitely showcase different parts throughout this year that he can help carry the load when the chips are down, so to speak, when Nick Chubb isn't there, and did well enough to get this team to where they're at, or at least contribute towards getting this team to where it's at. Looking back on it, I'd say besides Joe Flacco throwing those 2 interceptions in this game, the lack of running committee in this game as well definitely played a big part of it. And the Texans defense, we've been talking about it all year long, besides the maturing aspects that we've seen from the young players on the offensive side. The defensive side of the Texans has done it as well. They stepped up in a big game and a big moment, and I'm happy for them.
Yeah, well said, man. Yeah, I agree. And I did say my X factor to my brothers again. I said the X factor of this game is Laremy Tunsil. If he can find a way to limit Myles Garrett to touching CJ Stroud, I love the Texans' chances. Well, how many sacks did the Browns have in that game? 0. So Tunsil and heck, the rest of that offensive line with Texans did their job and then some. So kudos to you guys. Best effort I've ever seen a Texans team have in any game in the history of the franchise. I have no problem saying that. I have no problem admitting that. And this is not recency bias. This is just what I've seen the last 23 years. This is the best effort I think I've ever seen that this team actually exhibit. So, yeah, kudos to you guys.
I'd say the sad part about it is I wish we could have seen this while J.J. Watt was still with the team.
Same, man. Same.
Because for what he brought to that team, the energy he brought on the defensive side, and just the overall, human being that he is, I would have loved to see this while he was with the team.
Yeah.
But at least he gets to celebrate it, without getting his body banged up. So,
yeah.
I mean, there is a win-win for that, too. You can see how happy he is talking about it on the Fact McAfee show. But at least here, going into the second week, you guys survived Super Wildcard Weekend in a moment we did not think we would see for the Texans this season. We thought it was something they were building on for possibly second or third year with CJ Stroud. But for you to do it early on like this is a very, very, very promising future for this team.
It's a positive sign. How you doing, Winder, on the PSF app? I hope everything's good with you, my man. Well, yes, the Texans, they won the first Super Wildcard game of the 2023/24 NFL playoff campaign, 45-14 over the, I was about to say Bills. The Browns, we'll talk about the Bills a little later. But they patiently waited until basically yesterday afternoon as to who they were going to play. They were hoping, though, they would get another home game. In the words of in the words of Stone Cold, the Chiefs said, as they hosted the Dolphins in the frozen tundra of Arrowhead Stadium. I know it doesn't sound right. The Lambeau Field sounds better, but still, you get the gist. Kickoff was -4 degrees, which was the 4th coldest ever NFL game ever played. The Dolphins didn't even stand a chance. 26-7. The game wasn't even that close. The Chiefs basically had their way on both sides of the ball, but I would definitely say they most certainly had their way defensively with the Dolphins because the Dolphins offense couldn't do anything against the Chiefs. They couldn't do anything against them. Patrick Mahomes, 23 of 41, 262 yards, a touchdown. Played reasonably well. I actually liked how he played in terms of this offense not being as explosive. Of course, this was the Tyreek Hill coming back home game. And it was interesting to see how the offense has evolved since Hill has left. And speaking of evolution of this offense, Rashee Rice, who I think is going to be the number one target very soon of this team, 8 receptions, 130 yards, and a touchdown. And I say that because we'll talk a little bit about Travis Kelce. Isaiah Pacheco, 24 carries, 89 yards, and a touchdown. I think they need to utilize him more in the running game. I love how he ran in this game. On the other end, Tua Tagovailoa, 20 of 39, 199 yards, a touchdown, and an INT. Again, the score was 19 points in difference, but this game was not even close. What are your thoughts on this one?
I agree with you on the fact that this game was not even close. I mean, you brought up a good point with the Cheetah coming back home, and he was literally the only highlight for this Dolphins team.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was anybody other than him with the stats that he had, I'd say they had a decent game. But it's sad when we're saying that someone with 5 receptions, 62 yards, and a touchdown didn't have a good game, because looking at the overall scope of his season and how he played, except for that little small part where he got banged up, Cheetah was on fire. And these Dolphins offense was torching other teams. This game right here at Arrowhead was like their karma for what they did all year long and lighting up all these teams that they lit up, going on the road to Arrowhead Stadium and playing in like freezing temperatures and negative degree temperatures, getting banged up out there. I mean, they got exposed. They're too comfortable with playing in that warm weather as the Dolphins. The Dolphins and the Cowboys both had a lot in common when it came to beating up on bad teams this year and playing very subpar against really good teams this year. And it definitely showed in this game. Yeah, the score was relatively close, but you can't always go off a scoreboard. From start to finish, the Chiefs had this game decisively, and the only highlight that the Dolphins had literally was the Cheetah, and that wasn't even his best game. I mean, Tua didn't turn the ball over but like the one time, but still he barely completed half of his passes for one. Didn't even throw for 200 yards. Mostert could only muster up 33 yards, and someone who's 31 years old, who is on a rushing tear this year, this man barely got 33 yards, looked like a shell of himself on this frozen tundra that you speak of. You might as well have played at Lambeau Field. At least they have those little things that defrost the ground underneath that don't work as well, but at least they have something to try to make it a little bit better out here in these streets. But, you know, for the Cheetah's homecoming, at least the fans of him and what he did for the humanity of that community while with Kansas City, at least he gave those still lingering fans out there a touchdown, and the Chiefs still won. So for those who were still fans of the Cheetah, you got a win-win. You got a touchdown, you got a win from your team as well. It's good to be a Chiefs fan on this Tuesday.
Yeah, you got everything you wanted. if you're Tyreek Hill fan and a Chiefs fan, you saw him score a touchdown, and you saw your team win. This is why, and I had this conversation, and I'll touch on it a little later about home field advantage and why it is important to have it. This game is a good big time reason why. The Dolphins had within their grasp at least 2 home games they could have played if they were to go in this tournament as long as they could. They had it within their grasp. All they had to do was complete the second half the Sunday before when they hosted the Bills, win the AFC East, and then they would have had 2 games in South Beach, and they would be able to do what they normally would have done, maybe with a little more difficulty, but I think they would have flowed a lot easier. Of course, they screwed the pooch in that second half. They had to travel to KC. Just traveling alone is bad enough, but to travel in the cold when you were playing in my estimation, the warmest climate in the NFL, nah. This is why home field advantage is important, because you want to avoid games like this, and you want to avoid performances like this because your team is built for the warmer conditions. Because I have said it on this program, the Dolphins are basically a version of the Showtime Lakers. They want fast break on offense all the time. That's hard to do in the cold. That is hard to do. And I love that you mentioned the running. If the Dolphins are going to surprise people, they had to run the ball. They just didn't have it on the ground. No matter what they did on the ground, they just didn't have it. It just wasn't happening. And because of that, and because the Chiefs defense, and kudos to the Chiefs defense for rendering the Dolphins to be one-dimensional, you got what you received.
One thing I don't want to also leave out is something that you and I have talked about all season long, and that is how impactful this defense has been for the Kansas City Chiefs and how much things have shifted to where they were primarily carrying this team with their offense.
Right.
This year, they're a little bit more balanced on offense, especially with Rice, but their defense has stepped up tremendously over there in Kansas City. You cannot take any of that away from them, and that's something that came through big in this game against the Dolphins. I mean, I feel bad for A. Pizzle with what happened with his Dolphins team. He's usually rocking the fins up, but, this second half of the season, they have trended downward quite a bit and have repped what they sowed with putting up these big scores against people, and it came through this past weekend with their karma.
Yeah, from scoring 70 points against the Broncos to scoring only 70 against their divisional rival. Yeah, I don't think this is how they pictured their season ending. Well, before we continue, Vicala, or be like a 3, or Victor Locke. He says, good morning to the EP of all EPs, Cole Johnson, in the big game under Dunster Pelicans worldwide since they drew Willingham. I'll go ahead and lay down and take the kicks as they come. They'll be coming real soon. But he says, I hope you guys having a good day. So far, so good, my man. Now, I'm going to read the other message of our brother from No Criticism Required, Ryan McCarthy, when we get to it. But he talked about the Dolphins Chiefs. He says, if the venue changed from Arrowhead to, say, the Edward Jones Dome, which is in St. Louis, if those don't know, I don't think the result of the Dolphins Chiefs game would have changed. The Chiefs D had the Fins O on lockdown almost all game. I agree to a point, but I think the Dolphins would have been a little more sure-footed if it was a dome stadium. But I do agree with you. We saw it in Germany 2 months before. I think the game would have resembled more of that, where Dolphins would have had their moments and the Chiefs would have had their moments, but the Chiefs defense would have stopped the Dolphins O. And I think the Chiefs, I think they were better than the Dolphins. But that weather played a big part in that too.
I've got one response for you there, Vicala, when it comes to this. Yes, I'm very excited to talk about one specific. I've been waiting 2 days to press that button.
And you timed it perfect too. That's beautiful. Now the Sunday. Actually, we'll talk about them a little later. Let's get to the games of yesterday, shall we? The Bills and the Steelers.
There it is.
31-17. This game wasn't even that close. I mean, with the Josh Allen scramble for a touchdown, it was 21-0 Bills. We saw Highmark Stadium just get rained with snow as fans were tossing snow in the air. And the Steelers were proving again that they just were outmatched and outgunned. Although, yes, they still have fight this game again. Even though this was a two-touchdown margin, the game really wasn't that close. Josh Allen, 21-30, 203 yards, 3 touchdowns, 8 carries, 74 yards with that aforementioned rushing touchdown. Allen, 74 of the 179 yards they got on the ground. And kudos to them for not leaving James Cook off the hook. He got 79 yards on the ground. But Mason Rudolph on the other side, 22-39, 229 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Well, congratulations, 8 thumbs. You've matured. I'm actually proud of you. But I'm glad you're not advancing. Not because I'm a Steelers hater, because I'm not. It's because I just am not a big fan of Mason Rudolph, although I think I might turn the corner in my thought process with him. Your thoughts on this, because what I saw was a Bills defense in the first half that came loaded for business. And although they let up in the second half, I liked how they played on defense a lot.
I liked how they played on defense too. And, there's certain people that are probably going to sit out here today based on the score and say, well, the Steelers need a quarterback. And some aspects you could argue that, but overall, he played pretty well in that game. You gotta give Mason Rudolph his credit. I mean, there were certain moments where the average quarterback would fold and he kept plugging away.
Yeah.
I think this Steelers team, though, needs a little bit more help on defense. And even
Yes.
though
Yes.
throughout this season, there were certain moments where the defense carried them because your subpar play from Kenny Pickett and how certain things were playing through that, they improved a little bit. It kind of the tide kind of shifted when Mason Rudolph came in for the last 3 weeks of the season, because when they won those last 3 games, you could arguably say that a lot of that had to do with Mason Rudolph's production. Now, in this game, he still threw for over 200 yards, still had a couple tidies, but then he did have that interception that had a big factor in it. But I would say the other factor in the fact they couldn't get Jalen Warren going in this running game. That right there, not being able to establish the run, that's why the Bills' defense looked as good as they did, because they were stopping the run. When it comes to the offense as well, you got to look at what old Josh Allen did with his legs and running the ball, which you and I have spoke several times throughout these previous 19 episodes about Josh Allen running the ball probably a little bit too much, and he's going to take too many hits if he keeps it up at this rate. Right. At least in this game particularly, especially in a frozen game like this with the amount of snow, he didn't take – I mean, the hits didn't look like they bothered him. And in that one play where he was like floating, he was going for the first down. He was running. He got knocked down to where he was laying sideways in the pile, didn't hit the ground, but then they pushed him to where he was standing back up again, and then he ran for another 2 yards and got the first down. That goes to show you how strong this quarterback is. He's a tough dude. And whether it's this year or some point very soon, I see the Bills in the Super Bowl. And depending on what happens this week, if the Ravens get knocked out and upset in the divisional round, I would not be surprised to see the Bills in the Super Bowl this year. Not saying they'll win it, but I won't be surprised to see them represent the AFC. Now that my pick from weeks ago with the Browns and their defense laying an egg this past weekend, I may have to go with the Bills, but I'm going to wait until we get to the divisional round and get through that before I make my pick again.
I feel you on that. And I feel you on what you described with Josh Allen. My issue with not Josh Allen, my issue with their offensive game planning was they relied on his arm too much and they relied on his legs too much. And I'm thinking, no, have somebody else be the bellwether cow for the running game. And you can still have Allen run, because I love that 8 carries part. Have it between 8 and 12, around that area for Josh Allen running, I can handle, because I don't think he'll take as much abuse, because I think he'll know when to run and when not to run. So if it's that low of a number and you got somebody else that's actually carrying the load and they can take those hits, I like that. And I mean, the dude is 6'5" and 240. I mean, he's built like a doggone tank. I mean, the dude could play linebacker if he wanted to. So, when I say that he runs too much, it is not an affront on his acumen or an affront on the fact he plays QB. It's just, or his skill set. It's just, he's too valuable, and you got to have him, and he can shred defenses in the pocket. You got to have him upright, and you got to have him in the fight for as long as you can have him, because the longer you have him in the fight, the better your chances are as the Bills of going to the Super Bowl and winning it. And my issue with this team was they just did not run it enough with someone other than Josh Allen. Now they're starting to do that with James Cook. Watch out.
And Dalton Kincaid, this rookie for the Bills, has really, really helped solidify this team, because now they can run 2 tight ends and 2 strong tight ends, because you got Knox and then you got him. So between the two, and both of them scored touchdowns in this game. and played 73 receptions by a rookie. I mean, that's a big deal. And especially when you think of the people that have played for this team in the past, there's been some other great, talented rookies, especially to play the tight end position for the Bills. And for him to do what he's done this year, there's no question why this team made it to the playoffs after having the drought they did and having to fire their offensive coordinator. I'm happy to see the Bills make it to where they're at right now.
Poor Ken Dorsey. Yeah, I am too. We'll talk a little bit more about the Bills in terms of how they were to where they are now a little later. But yeah, hats off to them because I did not see them playing like this Thanksgiving. I did not see this. I thought they were going to just circle the drain, and man, they came out fighting. But yeah, we'll talk about them later. As for the Steelers, I love the fact that they have fight and moxie. That definitely speaks of the heart of Mike Tomlin and the imprint he has on the team. But you hit the nail on the head.
One more thing,
needs to run the ball, and when they don't, they even defensively run flat.
Ken Dorsey deserved to get fired. He deserved to get fired as a coach, and he deserved to get fired as a quarterback in the 2000s.
Oh. I'll reserve comment for later because I know that has Commander's bias on this, but I will leave that alone. Yes, the Steelers were. You were too much, man. Yes, the Steelers were without TJ Watt, but I don't even think he would have made much of a difference. He may have gotten a sack. It may have gotten a tackle for loss. Heck, he may have gotten a pick. But outside of that, I don't think he would have made much of a difference. Which lends more to your point of, I think defensively, I think they got worn down. I mean, they had to carry this team for 3/4 of the year. And that weighs on a defense. When the defense feels as though they have to be the ones to stop the opposing team, to drum up the energy to actually score points too, that load gets a little bit heavy. And kudos to the D. They did their job, but they just couldn't last. And TJ Watt and Micah Fitzpatrick and Cam Hayward, they need a little more help. No question about that. But congratulations to Steelers for going as far as they normally do. Hate to say it that way, but hey, they fight. Well, we'll talk about the punishment a little later. But speaking of punishment, Heck, I might as well just do this now like this. The Philadelphia Eagles traveled to Tampa to play the Buccaneers. And I don't know what the team in white was looking at and how they were, because I did not recognize this team. They did not look the way they were supposed to look. The Eagles got bum rushed 32-9. And somebody had to take some part of their jersey and wave it in the air because they needed to surrender. This was an absolute dumpster Pelican performance by the Eagles. It was horrible. Baker Mayfield, 22-36, 337 yards and 3 touchdowns. Cade Otton, the tight end for the Bucs, 8 receptions, 89 yards. On the other side of things, Jalen Hurts with a messed up finger on throwing, hand and all, 25 of 35, 250 yards and a touchdown. Devontae Smith, who was the number 1 guy in place of A.J. Brown, who, of course, messed up his knee the week before, 8 receptions, 148 yards. The Eagles defense gave you 4 sacks. But here is why I am royally upset with the Eagles. You mean to tell me you only want to carry the ball 15 times? Really? 15 times? No, this is the snowflake of the week. Okay. Your thoughts on this? Because it upset me that the Eagles decided not to run but 15 times in this game.
This team totally imploded after starting 10-1. I mean, before we even got to the playoffs, this team right here is totally imploded. I mean, yes, you're absolutely right with the fact that they only ran the ball 15 times. DeAndre Swift, 10 of those times for only 34 yards. Definitely not the identity that we're used to seeing when it comes to the Eagles team. I mean, Jalen Hurts, even though statistically didn't look horrible as he only had 10 incompletions and, had 250 passing yards, did have a touchdown, didn't turn over the ball interception wise. It looked like that first half of the game, he just could not get going. Like he just could not get the drives going. And this Buccaneers team going into halftime was definitely, up 16-9. And it wasn't like, the very end of it where they were up 32-9, but the fact that they shut them out in a second half, a team that was just the NFC champion representing the league in the Super Bowl this past season. Absolutely terrible on the Eagles' part. The hype has died down. We could be seeing multiple firings in the coming week between Howie Roseman as GM, between Nick Sirianni as the head coach. There could be multiple moves within the roster here. I mean, Kelsey's more than likely going to retire, the longtime center and brother of Travis Kelce. At least he did get a Super Bowl. What's going to be for Lane Johnson, who's definitely had a historic career with the Philadelphia Eagles as well. We could see a completely different team minus Jalen Hurts and a couple of the other notable players like A.J. Brown may still be there, but who knows? Because A.J. Brown definitely in this game was pretty absent as well. If it wasn't for Devontae Smith, I don't even know if they would have even scored the 9 points that they had. So, you had a Julio Jones sighting for 3 catches, 22 yards, yet, A.J. Brown is nowhere. So looking at this situation right here, Quez Watkins only 3 receptions, 12 yards. Dallas Goedert only 4-21. I mean, besides Devontae Smith, the rest of the receivers and the running backs who had plays as receivers like Swift were just non-existent. Like their catches and their production didn't really do much to help move the chains for this team. So there's several teams this offseason that have a lot of moves to make. And I think part of that starts with Philadelphia. So whether they go out and they get Vraves or somebody else, I don't see Nick Sirianni coaching this team anymore, especially with how dejected he looked on the sideline yesterday and for many games leading up to the playoffs. Like something has definitely gone on within the culture of this team at some point in this year. And myself and you, even though we have a show here where we talk about the entirety of the league, unless you're an Eagles insider, you're not going to know exactly when that and be able to pinpoint when that happened and necessarily what. But something we can at least tell from afar that watching these games, there is something going on because how confident that man looked last year in the Super Bowl to how his behavior's been, and then what we saw with him lashing out on the fans not too long ago and him opening his mouth. Like someone as a leader doesn't do that, especially as a result of a game. And that was a win that you'd got after being on a losing streak for quite some time. So this situation, if you're Jeffrey Lurie, you got a lot of decisions to make in this offseason. And I think that's where it starts right there is leadership.
Man, you could not have hit the nail on the head harder. And we both do know one of the Eagles insiders personally, and he has been saying this all year. Of course, that is our brother Cool McCain of Eagles Elite. He's been saying it all year long, and I agree with him. I remember there was a team that wore the same thing they wore, looked the same as they did. But back in December 2022, they ran for over 230 yards and threw for over 200 yards against a Lions team, and they looked like they just were willing to steamroll over teams. That is not 1 year later against the same opponent. They did not look like that at all. And I'm thinking to myself, what in the world happened? Is it the fact that Shane Steichen, the former offense coordinator of the Eagles, who now is the head coach of the Colts, and Jonathan Gannon, who now is the defense head coach of the Cardinals, was defense coordinator? Is it that the coordinators were that heavy in the planning and that influential with the team that when they left, that the confidence left with them? I was like, it couldn't be. Just because you had Sirianni there, I'm thinking, okay, well, they should be fine. They have their identity. They all they had to do is tweak, because they only were a field goal off of winning the Super Bowl last year. It seems like to me it seems that Sirianni tweaked so hard, and that I heard this from Cool, and I got a chance to see it. It looked like he was in such a rush to say, this is my team and this is how they look because of my genius, and it fell completely flat. They were soft when they shouldn't be. They lacked the pressure of getting after the quarterback when they led the league in sacks last year. And the secondary just got burned like toast. I mean, there's so many different things, and we see this, and we're not Eagles fans, we're not Eagles insiders, but this is what we saw. And I'm thinking to myself, this is not the same team we saw last year. Something is wrong, and I agree with you. They imploded. And I think the players didn't like how the coaching was influencing them.
I mean, I haven't used this clip on this episode yet, but I think it's about time that I bring it up. I mean, I know Cole has been waiting for this moment. I'm going to give it to him. When it comes to dumpster Pelicans in this game, and throughout the entirety of this playoffs, you see that second dumpster Pelican standing on that Walmart bag right there? I would have to say that is the representation of the Philadelphia Mother, Father, and Eagles right there.
Oh, no.
When you look at that one, the Walmart bag that it's right, the back right leg is stepping on, that in itself is their ego that they're stepping on. That is the Philadelphia Eagles stepping on their own ego. Their ego. The eagle stepping on the eagle. No, eagle stepping on the ego. Looking at the Walmart bag right there, the second one on the left right there from the top. You got to give it to this team right there, the Philadelphia Eagles, as they played like absolute dumpster Pelicans, but they were not the number one dumpster Pelican of the week. I'm looking forward to covering that one.
Oh, and you're about to cover it soon. Look, before we do get to that, kudos to the Buccaneers. I mean, look, we could say, well, their record was horrible, and I'm going to address somebody who talked about how both side divisions were trash. It does not matter. When you get to the dance, it's what you do when you're in it. So the Buccaneers got to the dance, and the defending NFC champs got put in their place, and they routed them by 23. I don't care what their record was. They got there on the field, they suited up, and they put their big boy pants on, and they smacked the crap out the Eagles. I mean, defensively, the Bucs smacked the Eagles down. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. The defense of the Bucs smacked the Eagles down. The offense they had no fight. The only silver lining they had offensively was Devontae Smith going ham. Outside of him, the offense could do nothing.
And you cannot blame a single PI call on why you took the forgot it was still on the loop. But hey, when it comes to last year's Super Bowl, that's all we heard about throughout the majority of the rest of February, going into the beginning of March. And now we get to
Delete!
because that is not what happened yesterday. That is not what happened in this whole leading up to the playoff run. You can take it all back and do this.
You should know your role and shut your mouth.
I rest my case.
As you can tell, this portion of Total Football Talk, my partner and my brother is going to he's thoroughly enjoying it now. He's going to thoroughly enjoy it even further.
Warmed up.
Considering that he's a Commanders fan and he got a chance to see one of his rivals go down. Now it's about time we talk about the other. But before we do, Ryan McCarthy says, sorry to be politics into this, but James Bradbury whiffed on that tackle harder than Ron DeSantis whiffed in the Iowa caucus. And debate number 3 and debate number 2. I'm sorry, my bad. Victor says the grossest misuse of personnel was DeAndre Swift in Philly. And I have said this to many people. I said, okay, so the Eagles traded for DeAndre Swift. Why? I mean, heck, if he was going to get the same amount of carries in Detroit as he did in Philly, what was the point? I don't understand that. I don't. I really don't.
I mean, even though Kevin Byard's been kind of quiet on the defensive side, he's still been productive. I mean, that trade with the Titans definitely came through. I mean, he had 5 tackles in this game. He produced more than Swift, but he's kind of being quiet over there on the defensive side. But still, I mean, that's still not enough production to help out, as the Bucs still scored 32 points on you and still dropped 32 points. Bad defenses don't get lit up by us in the media as much when the offense has enough firepower to keep up with it and they're scoring enough to keep up with it or supersede it to get the win. But even in this case, there wasn't enough firepower on this offense that we saw last year in 2022. And then for this season in 2023, it was a completely different scenario after the first 11 games.
It's just, I just don't. Still, I just don't understand how you had a team with the philosophy that was there already built. All you had to do was just tweak, and they just went with the overhaul. I'm thinking, oh man, but I agree with you. This whole season for the Eagles was an absolute.
I mean, it's evident they got way too cocky, and they've always been too cocky. And, even before they won that Super Bowl, there's been several points where Eagles and Cowboys fans get a little full of themselves. Okay. At least as a Commanders fan, I've known since the mid-90s that they suck. Okay. So when it comes to the Eagles and the Cowboys, they get 10 wins early on in the season, and they start riding the hopes and dreams to a Super Bowl just to get let down in the first round every single time for the most point. That's mainly the Dallas Cowboys' case. But the Eagles have definitely shared a lot more success in recent times. But I think this is karma for them letting their ego get a little too out of hand, especially with Sirianni running his mouth during the season. I mean, this is definitely karma for them.
Yeah. It is, and to me, that's where I believe the blame should go there with him, because there should not be an excuse for this squad to be the way they are. But oh well. Oh, that's right. You mentioned the team. Oh yeah. Oh. And yes, Victor, he says Swift was the biggest steal on draft day. Yeah, it was. But to see how he has been, heck, I'll go on and say it, misused, it's criminal. It's criminal. He should have been used more. Yes, he still got over 1,000 yards on rushing. Yes, but he could have been used more. And I think if he was used more, the Eagles would not be bounced out the playoffs in the wild card round. And I think they would have won the NFC East again if they did. For the first time in almost 20 years, you would have had a repeat champion in the NFC East. But nope, you didn't have that. You had to go from 10-1 to out the playoffs in 6 weeks. Congratulations, Eagles. No, congratulations, Nick Sirianni. You messed this team up all the way. Oh, and the other comment that we passed, so Ryan McCarthy says, "Good morning, gents. When do we get to point and laugh the Cowboys? And are they indeed still them boys?" I'm so glad you asked, Mr. McCarthy. My heart warms because you asked for that. And now it's time for the upset of the week. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. To me, this is hilarious. The Cowboys, they won the NFC East. They got into they were 12-5. They benefited from a call against the Lions in week 17 to get them to get to the inside track, the number 2 seed, because they haven't lost a home playoff game in a couple of years. I think the last time they lost it was the wild card round game against the 49ers 2 years ago. I'm thinking that this should be a gift wrap for the Cowboys, because the 9-8 Packers can't do anything against them. There's no way. I mean, 48-16 with 6 minutes in the fourth quarter. It was hilarious. I'll even rewind a bit. We get to 27-0, and it was beautiful to see that mausoleum known as Gerard World just all sullen, except for green people are clad in Packers jerseys, all happy. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm being all unprofessional. So the Packers went to Arlington, Texas, to play the Cowboys. And the Arlington Desperados, Dallas Cowboys, got curb stomped, although the final score didn't indicate it, 48-32. But it was 48-16 with 6 minutes to go, with Dak Prescott getting empty yards and points and yardage. Jordan Love, remember the stat line I read for CJ Stroud? 16-21, 274 yards, 3 touchdowns. Well, Jordan Love was 16-21 for 272 yards and 3 touchdowns. And this was also his first ever NFL start in the playoffs. Romeo Doubs, 6 receptions, 151 yards and a touchdown. And there was a reception where I saw nothing but him and green turf. And that wasn't the only time I saw that. Oh, good Lord. Aaron Jones, he basically was like Eric Dickerson and Marshall Faulk rolled into one. Although he only had 1 reception of 13 yards, he carried the ball 21 times for 118 yards and scored 3 touchdowns. The Packers offense, out the 118 yards that Jones got on the ground, they got as a team 143 yards on the ground. But the Packers defense, they got 4 sacks and 2 picks on the day. And let's see, on the Cowboys and CeeDee Lamb, 9 receptions, 110 yards, and a load of drops. Michael Gallup, 6 receptions, 103 yards. Jake Ferguson, 10 receptions, 93 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And Dakota Prescott, 41 of 60, 403 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, one of them a pick 6. Your thoughts on the Cowboys losing a playoff game once again, and for the 8th time in the 28 years since they've had their drought, they have been bounced in the wild card round, this time again to the Packers.
Let me talk to you.
Oh, it is time.
Oh, Lord.
It was Absolutely.
Now, that is absurd.
To watch this game this past weekend. I mean, unless you didn't know beforehand, I got something for you. This team laid an absolute historic egg this past weekend. I mean, looking at what happened, the Packers come in the fourth youngest team to ever make the playoffs, okay? Looking at what they were able to accomplish this year, that's huge. Aaron Jones, probably one of the older ones on this team, definitely helped lead the way and establish the run, like you said. Great comparison with Eric Dickerson right there. I mean, the man had 3 touchdowns, 21 carries, 118 yards. Tony Pollard could not get the running game going. 15 carries, 56 yards, a fraction of what Aaron Jones was able to do. I mean, good on him for still getting the ball in the end zone, but that was still one of the very few touchdowns that the Cowboys put on very early on in the game. So going into halftime, it's 27-7. The Green Bay Packers looked like they were definitely going to take this one away, especially when you look at the end of the third quarter and they're up 41-16. I feel like those last 2 touchdowns were gimme touchdowns from what the Packers did to say, hey, Mike McCarthy, we're going to try to save your job here by giving you a couple touchdowns and only letting you lose by 2 possessions to end the game rather than completely embarrassing you. Because for the longest time in this game, it was looking like a completely embarrassing game.
What?
A completely embarrassing game.
What?
Oh, I said it, and I cannot say it enough. It was an embarrassing game for Gerald.
What?
Gerald's going to come after old Billy B.
Yeah. Yeah.
Old BB.
What?
6-time winning Super Bowl champion BB Bill Belichick.
What?
Oh, I said it. And I'll say it again.
What?
And I'll say it a third time.
What?
They're going after Belichick.
What?
A 72-year-old man.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll talk about that more after the playoffs as we have, and we'll be searching for more things to talk about in this show before we get started with the UFL. But when it comes to this game right here, somebody's definitely going to hear these words this week.
Yeah. Fire.
It may not be McCarthy. It could be Dan Quinn's hearing it.
Yeah. Fire.
Now, I know that the Commanders need this.
Stop it. Get some help.
But they have an interview with Dan Quinn this week, and I think they need to rescind that interview because those interviews were definitely being scheduled before this previous game, okay? And now you're going to continue to go on with it. You're going to just say, oh, one bad game, we're gonna keep you in our head coaching searches. Like, no. I look back and think about what happened with him in his time with Atlanta. I look back and I think about, even though there was a lot of good promise this year, there was definitely some games this year, and especially this past one, where I look back and I think that his defense got exposed pretty bad. So if I'm a Commanders fan, if I'm a Commanders person in the front office, I'll hear what you guys say during the interview, but I'm going to go somewhere else when it comes to hiring that position. But going back to this Cowboys game, big part of it, the fact that Dak Prescott had to throw 60 pass attempts to get to where they were and to will them back to within a 16-point deficit. They had no running game in this game. Between the 56 yards that Tony Pollard was able to muster up, Dak Prescott had to muster up 45 yards on the ground because Dottle, Cooks, and Lamb all combined between those 3 rushing attempts on 4 rushing attempts, rushing attempts for 22 yards between 3 other people. They missed Zeke as far as the 1-2 punch, maybe not the check balance that they had to pay out to him. but they miss having the 1-2 punch, because even though Zeke was trending downward those last couple of years, having that 1-2 punch establish the run and mix things up really well. If you're the Dallas Cowboys, along with the changes you're going to make this offseason, you need to bring in someone to complement Tony Pollard if you're going to keep Tony Pollard. And if you don't, now you need to bring in 2 running backs, because that 1-2 punch in Dallas has helped you out in big games when you needed it.
Oh my gosh, it's just ridiculous. We'll return to the bashing of the Cowboys in a sec. Kudos to the Packers, though. Kudos to them. I mean, you said it, 4th youngest ever team to make it to the playoffs, the youngest team in this pool to make it, and they played like the veterans that they were. The young veterans that they are, and they play like the team that they look like they are the threat that you could think of that could unseat the 49ers in the NFC playoffs round. Instead of the hype being the Cowboys. And when I started hearing that, I was like, what? The same team that got dog walked 42-10 in October, this is the greatest threat to the 49ers going through to the Super Bowl? Really?
And I don't want to take away.
I'm like, no. I was like, no.
And I don't want to take away from the credit from the Packers with all the shade we're throwing at the Cowboys, because the Packers played one great game and deserved the praise. And that's the one thing I'm afraid that the mass media this week is going to throw more shade on the Cowboys than giving enough credit to the Packers, because the Packers deserve all the credit in the world. They went up against one of the best defenses in the league. And even though the Dallas Cowboys don't have Trayvon Diggs, that's not that big of a blow. Or at least since week 3 this season when he went down, it hasn't been that big of a blow for them to not win the division. So it shouldn't have been that big of a blow for them to get blown out the way that they did in this game. So I think it speaks more on the Packers' preparation and what Matt LaFleur was able to do with this Packers offense rather than the demise of the Dallas defense.
Agreed. And Souls and PSF app, he said, look, the Cowboys really need to think about coaching because Dan Quinn really crapped himself in the foot. I mean, I just
I like
this
how
is
it's
a
really
man. Yeah, I know.
I'm gonna.
This is a. Yeah, you are. This is a man defense. This is a man-to-man defense. What the heck? They decided to throw out doing zone in a playoff game. And obviously they didn't have much time practicing it because, man, were there some seams and dead spots and open lanes and open spots for the Packers to just roam through. I'm like, really? You're going to unveil something new now, something you really haven't done all year long? I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm not a Cowboys fan, but I was getting heated when I was seeing that. Heated. I'm like, and I actually said the second quarter, I said, you all deserve to get out the playoffs. It's just ridiculous. I mean, but credit to the Packers and credit to LaFleur. It's like, okay, this is what they're going to give us. Well, we're going to take it and run with it. And I'm glad they did. I'm glad they didn't settle. I'm glad they weren't conservative. They're like, okay, well, they're going to have these dead spots on the field. Fine. We'll embarrass them to the point. We'll throw it. And when the receiver catches it, you'll see nothing but turf and him. You won't see a white jersey 10 yards near him. I'm like, goodness gracious. But yes, Matt LaFleur, beautiful game plan on offense. And the Packers defense has actually awakened the last month. I take that back. I'll say the last 6-7 weeks, starting on Thanksgiving, when they actually played Thanksgiving Day in Detroit. It seems like that defense woke up then, and they have actually been on a tear since. And look, you can say, well, Cole, the Cowboys still scored 32 points. 16 points was in the final 6 minutes of the game, where it was basically second and third stringers. But the other 54 minutes, 16 points scored by, if I'm not mistaken, the second or third ranked scoring offense in the NFL. I would say that's a really good effort by the Packers defense. And then you have a guy who, Jordan Love, never started an NFL playoff game, and he just tears and carves up the Cowboys defense that was bragged about as a pretty good defense of their own. And then you have Aaron Jones, who he had his pick of whatever lane and whatever hole he wanted to go through. God.
While we're on Dallas, because, once we shift gears into talking about next week, we'll kind of be done with Dallas for the season. So there's a question that was posed on the PS. Oh yeah. There's a question that was posed on PSF about, and Kellen Moore got let go after last season. So who or what is really the problem in Dallas? That's a really good question. And I think part of that has to go with some of the production that we're getting by some of these positions on this team. And part of that has to say the defense, because of the amount of points that they gave up in this game, for one. But also going back to something that I was talking about with one of my last takes was the 1-2 punch at running back. You need to get back to that and establish the run. The fact that Dak Prescott had 60 pass attempts in this game is absolutely absurd. You shouldn't have to be passing 60 pass attempts in a game. I don't care how much you're paying the quarterback. You still shouldn't be throwing the ball 60 times in a game, because usually when you're doing that, it's because you're trying to come from behind, and you don't have as much time to establish the run. There's not many times you'll see a quarterback throw 60 pass attempts in a game, let alone win the game on that many pass attempts. So looking at that right there, I would say you have to place the blame more on the defensive side of this team this year than with the offensive side, because Dak still had 400 passing yards. Yeah, he did turn the ball over twice with the interceptions, but looking at that, I would say you have to put more focus on the defense this offseason, because you gave up 48 points in this game, and the games that you did lose this year were more impacted by the way the defense was playing. And I still am going to sit here and say, I don't think that Diggs was that big of a piece that went down in week 3 for them to lose the game the way they did yesterday, because if that was the case, they wouldn't have even made it to the playoffs if he was that big of an impact.
Oh man. It was some beautiful stuff. I'll go back 4 months. 4 months. I'll go back that far. Yes, the very first Sunday night football game, the Cowboys were in the Meadowlands by the Giants, and it was this basically it was a slip and slide all throughout MetLife Stadium, and the Cowboys beat the Giants, beat the brakes off them 40-0. And in a chat, I actually got this statement, quote, "Oh yeah, we gonna go all the way this year. We gonna go all the way this year," close quote. And I said to that gentleman right then and there, quote, "You're gonna go all the way, all right, to the couch in January," close quote. And so we rewind to Sunday, and I said to this chap, quote, "Remember when you said to me and you said to the rest of us that y'all were gonna go all the way? And you remember what I said? You remember what I said, right? You don't? Oh, let me refresh your memory. I said that you will be going all the way to your couch in January. What month is it now?" Close quote. Let me see. It was Tuesday, 9/25. I still haven't heard from him yet.
Oh, you know why? Because he's probably saying, we gotta pause that.
like, I didn't hear a thing or a peep from him. I'm like, oh, I hated that. I wanted to enjoy it because, I mean, this is what the Cowboys give you. They give you really good, exciting action from September to early January. And then when we get to this part of the year, they decide to show that they really aren't worthy of being anywhere on a playoff field. That's just who they are.
It's pretty cowardice. You know,
Very much so. Very much
you know,
so.
that's why I take a lot of pride in the fact that even though the Commanders played horrible this season, I still had an episode each and every week, even last week, to cover the very final game of the year. Did not have one this week, of course, because there was no Commanders action. And besides the one hire with Peters, I didn't think that was enough to have an entire episode. So maybe next week, the week after, we'll see when some more moves are made. But for what you just described, it's a pretty cowardice fan of the Cowboys right there. Like, if you're going to run your mouth, which they've done for 27 years now, about going to the Super Bowl and not coming through, if you're going to run your mouth, at least when it doesn't come to fruition, at least for the 5 minutes that it's going to take your licks and then move on.
Yeah.
Don't hide in the brushes to where we have to come looking for you and knocking on your door to get these answers out of you. Like, just face the music, bro. If the Commanders can face it at 4-13, then you should be able to face it with one bad loss for the season, and it just happened to be the loss that knocked you out of the playoffs. Unfortunately.
It is unfortunate. It's grossly unfortunate, but hey, you know, I'm sorry. I just find it funny. I find it hilarious. I just don't understand how and this is the issue I have with Cowboys fan. You have this delusion. You think that this team is good enough to go all the way to the Super Bowl every single year, and you will overlook the holes that you have. For me, I'm like, there's no way they're going to go all the way. They can't run the ball. And I said this back in September, like, they can't run the ball. And as soon as they could do that, then I probably say, yeah, you have a shot. And then people were actually saying after they beat the Lions, well, this team, this is the best shot for them to go to the NFC Championship game since 1995. I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. They finished 12-5 this year. They finished 12-5 last year. They finished 12-5 the year before that. And for the exception of Ezekiel Elliott, I'm seeing the same team. I'm like, no, and no.
But you know what's going to happen? They're going to make a few moves this offseason. They're going to draft a few players, and then I'd say by June, July, when they start getting mini camps ready, we're going to hear this.
I think I got my swagger back. Oh.
And then we're going to get to this point next year and be saying this all over again.
Hell to the no, to the no, no. Hell no, to the no.
And that's how I feel about this Arlington Desperados team.
Desperado. Why don't you come to your senses? Exactly.
So long ago, Desperado. Actually, it was just yesterday. Oh, 2 days ago.
Right. Oh my gosh.
You can't handle the truth.
To all Cowboys fans.
No, they sure can't. But I'm glad they can't. So for all of you who wanted to shame us all and say, you hate us because you ain't us, and Dallas Cowboys for life, you wish you were us. Now we get to do this.
Ain't nobody calling me, texting me, paging me, asking me, are you still involved? Calling me, texting me, paging me, asking me, am I still involved? Y'all usually check on me. Listen,
Speaking for all the Cowboys fans, son.
I'm still them
I
boys.
fully support this message today.
Oh, shut up, my boy, shut up. I'm still them boys.
No.
Them boys, them boys,
No,
them
no,
boys.
no,
I'm still them
no.
boys. Yeah. I'm still them boys.
That was made even better by you singing too. I love that. Victor, you know this isn't addressed to you when I say that. Yes.
I had to put that up there during that clip.
Yeah,
He is a Cowboys fan.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but we know that there are Cowboys fans that would be like, yeah, our team sucks. I know a few of them, and you're one of them, Victor. And I've actually ran into a couple more even after that game where they were like, this sucks. This is absolutely horrible. And I actually was trying to make it feel better. I was like, well, hey, at least you all fought at the end. And I love you, King Dog, because this is why I'm boys with him. He said, quote, the fact that they put up empty yards don't mean a thing. Close quote. I was so proud that there was a Cowboys fan that was willing to admit that. I'm like, that's why I'm boys with him. Oh, Ryan says, fun fact, the Cowboys are the first team ever to win at least 12 games in the regular season, 3 consecutive seasons, and not make the Super Bowl. They didn't even make the NFC Championship game. And they went 12-5. 12-5. 12-5. And they've only made a divisional round once in these 3 years. They got they won 12 games 3 straight years, and they got bounced twice in the wild card round. Oh, even worse, they got bounced in the wild card round, and they were at home. 2 home losses in the wild card round when they were 12-5. Victor says, ladies and gentlemen, please face palm and groan as we listen to the national anthem of the Moronic Republic of Cowboys Nation as sung by Tyrese Cisco McKnight. Oh my goodness. I love it. I love it. Oh, and Ryan says, I saw Skip Dripless throw away his Cowboys jersey. Maybe he should root for a winning football team in the Metroplex and then name the Arlington Renegades. That is the UFL reference. And we will have that coverage too, starting March 30th and going onward. Oh, but before we do conclude, I dedicate the following I'm about to play to all of us who are so sick and tired of not the Ivan Dawkins of the world, not the Ben Southern Thirds of the world, not even the Chris Dietz of the world, and not of the Victor Locks of the world. But we dedicate this to all of the delusional Cowboys fans, or as Victor so eloquently stated, the moronic republic of Cowboys Nation. Because really, I have to ask this question. When has it been the last time the Cowboys have been anywhere close to the Super Bowl? I'm have a hard time. I got to find an answer to that question. Let me see if I can find that answer. Oh, here it is. Here's the answer. I think this is the answer right here.
Daddy, how long has it been since the Cowboys won the Super Bowl?
Ooh.
Billy Joel.
One of my favorite songs ever.
I was 9 years old last time Cowboys won the Super Bowl. This is January '96.
Yes.
So my bad, 28 years.
Yeah.
It has been almost, well, technically 27. It's not fully 28 yet.
Not
but
yet.
Looking at this situation right here, that was a great parody song for one. I was tearing up.
Yes, yes, I figured you.
But But there were some other clips. I got to find where they're at. I might try to find them during the commercial, but it might be too late then. But where the one from last year where the guy's punching his TV.
Oh gosh.
And ripping it down and throwing it on the ground. And the one where the guy ran over his TV, backed over it with the truck. I mean, there's been a lot of great clips we've seen over the years. Cowboy fans flipping out.
Yes.
But, and check out that message that I sent you to there, Cole.
I got you.
My man is back up. All right, good. But now, as you can hear us now, PSF and on all these other platforms, this Cowboys team is once again been exposed, and Gerald is going to be making some moves this offseason. Will it be at head coach? Will it be at quarterback? Will it be at both? GM, I mean, will Belichick come in? Will he be the head coach? The GM, will he be coaching Dak? Will he bring in mac and cheese? Who knows? Somebody's going to be eating some mac and cheese. Maybe not playing mac and cheese, but this is definitely going to be a wild off season for Dallas because they have got to make some moves, especially on that running back committee because it is not working out with just Tony Pollard leading the charge.
Yeah, no,
absolutely.
It's not. No, it's not. Oh, Victor says, look, here's a new idiotic record. It says, look, it is bad. Trust me. So last year, it was 15 seconds for the first Moronic Republic response talking about, oh, we're gonna go with the Super Bowl this year. We're going to go to Super Bowl this year after the latest elimination. It says this year it was 5.6.
Bruh.
Oh,
for real, they need this now.
Stop it. Get some help.
Absolutely.
That team is just circling the drain. Oh, Cowboys. Now, the next time that you will possibly make it to the NFC Championship game, let alone the Super Bowl, it's now will be 29 years and counting, Cowboys fan.
And guess what? When you make it back, we're going to see this again.
You darn right. And now the game of the week, and probably the most heartwarming part of, I guess, I would dare say, some of our adulthoods, some of our latter adulthoods in my case. And now would be the game between the Detroit Lions hosting the Los Angeles Rams. Now, of course, we had our fun with the Cowboys. I think we all, I won't say with teary-eyed, but I think we all have a hard spot for the Lions. And who wouldn't? But the Rams were worthy challengers, and they put forth a really good effort. But they fell just a wee bit short, 24-23. The Lions do take it. I'll go to the stats first. Jared Goff, 22-27, 277 yards and a touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown gave you 7 receptions, 110 yards, and a key third down reception with under 2 minutes to go in the game to seal it. Josh Reynolds also playing against his former team, just like Jared Goff was. 5 receptions, 80 yards. Aiden Hutchinson, a Detroit native, I will add. He gave you 2 sacks on the night. And on the losing end of returning to Detroit, Matthew Stafford, who got a wonderful Detroit welcome. 25-36, 367 yards and 2 touchdowns. Puka Nacua, who looks like he is going to be the guy to, I won't say replace, but the guy, I guess, who will take the torch from one Cooper Kupp. 9 receptions, 181 yards and a touchdown. And Ernest Jones on the defensive end for the Rams, he put Goff to the turf 2 times. This is the first playoff victory for the Lions since January of 1992, when they beat the Cowboys 38-6 in the Silver Dome. So this was the first ever Ford Field playoff game. And the Lions won. And thanks to the Cowboys they will play another game at Ford Field. Your thoughts on this, which to me, this was not even question. This is game of the week.
My first thought is sorry to the PSF app who didn't hear anything that Cole just said because it was definitely a great take. especially when it comes to setting up this Lions team right here. I mean, this game right here was definitely arguably the game of the week, like you had selected for this. I mean, looking at how close this game was from start to finish, none of the other games it felt like that we watched throughout this weekend were even relatively close.
Not even close.
In this one being down to a 1-score game, I mean, I was happy to see old man Campbell lead the Lions towards a victory in this game right here. And Matthew Stafford coming back home, getting booed as he trotted out onto the field. Jared Goff, who at that point of the trade, it was a big win for LA, and they won the Super Bowl not long after that. Right. And people were throwing shade on Jared Goff, saying that, yeah, I mean, the Lions did get a younger quarterback, but they're not going to have the success the Rams did. Watch out. The Lions, whether it's this year or next year, I feel like have a really good chance at making a really good run. And who knows? It could be this year. If they win this game, this upcoming week between themselves and the Bucs, whether it's the Bucs led by Bunker Stayfield or the Lions led by Jared Goff, we're going to see two teams that we did not think one of those two teams represent the NFC in the NFC Championship, okay, with a chance to go to the Super Bowl. Of course, they'll probably be playing the 49ers. We'll get to that here in a little bit. But regardless, whichever one of these two teams win this upcoming weekend, it's still a major accomplishment and something that we didn't see coming by either one of these teams making it to the NFC Championship game. And we'll be able to see that as a result of a game we'll be covering here in a little bit. But this Lions team right here, Jared Goff, only 5 incompletions, 22 of 27, 277 yards, 1 touchdown. Absolutely great. David Montgomery, someone who we've thrown a lot of shade on in Chicago for what he did over there. Even though the numbers weren't stellar, 14 carries, 57 yards, and a touchdown was enough to get it done. Kieran Williams, someone for the Lions who, even though he had more running yards than David Montgomery, we're used to seeing a little bit more production out of him for LA. So I think that kind of hindered them. Puka Nacua with his 181 yards had a stellar performance, but unfortunately that wasn't enough to take the Rams to the next level. I think him being as young as he is, we're going to see a lot more great years out of him. Unfortunately, it probably won't be with Matthew Stafford, though. I think this offseason they will either do away with Matt Stafford, or they're going to draft the heir apparent, or at least in free agency bring somebody in who's going to compete with him, or just completely just do away with Matt Stafford altogether, because he didn't play terrible this year, but you could see where he's getting older, for one. He doesn't have much more time left, if he has any time left at all. And it could be that we may have seen him play his last game in a place that he played for many years, kind of like a full circle moment for him to retire. He got a Super Bowl already. It's not like he has to keep chasing that ring. He's already got it. He's made plenty of money. He's got a family. He's got a future. Like, he has no need to go out there. The Rams have been talking about rebuilding at the quarterback position already since that Super Bowl that they won. Sean McVay is a young coach who wants to win now. And if they got to rebuild for a year or two with a newer quarterback, I think he's ready to go through that. But it starts this offseason. I don't think that they push it back anymore. I think it starts now.
It has to start now for the Rams. It has to start now. And this sounds really callous, what I'm about to say, but this is how the Rams, I think, have thought the last few years. They slid all their chips to the table for 2021, and they got exactly what they got. They won their Super Bowl ring. They got it. Now that they got it, the beginning of tearing away from that team and rebuilding something new and something for the future started last year. It accelerated this year. I think it's going to accelerate even further going into next year. And out of all the choices that you selected, that you put forth, I think they're probably going to go with an heir apparent. They're probably going to draft an heir apparent maybe have Stafford train him up for about a year or two, and then I think Stafford will go off into the sunset, riding off to the sunset, while the guy takes over, unless it's like a CJ Stroud type where he could take over first snap of the regular season. I doubt it, considering that unless they could trade up, maybe. But if they can't trade up, I think they'll draft an heir apparent, and he's going to have to sit on the bench for at least a year. And if that's the case, Stafford would play that 1 year. And yeah, I think he's not much longer for the NFL, just because let me say this about Stafford. That guy, we talked about Josh Allen's toughness. Matthew Stafford, that dude took some licks, and he just still kept on taking in that game. So if anybody's going to question Matthew Stafford's toughness, can't do it. The dude could take pounding, and he could still go onward. Pause. And he could still go onward. I just wanted to be upright though when he does retire, because he is taking licks. He took a lot of licks when he played 12 years to Detroit, and he took a few. Now being the Rams starting QB, but yeah, I think it'll be the heir apparent. That's what's going to be happening, because now they already have their running back of the future in Kyron Williams. They have their wide receiver, their number one wide receiver of the future in Puka Nacua. Now I think all they need to do is just shore up their offensive line, find the heir apparent for a quarterback, and then begin the tearing away the defense. Because another thing is Aaron Donald going to retire, because I know he's not near retirement age, but there's been talk ever since they won the Super Bowl that he might call it quits. So that would be a huge blow if he were to leave the Rams, because there has been many a game plan the last few years where it started with find a way to contain number 99. And if that's taken away from the Rams, their potency sort of decreases until they find somebody else that can do the certain things that he did, or find somebody on defense that could be the impact player like he is. So yeah, the Rams, I think, have a lot of questions going to offseason, but kudos to them. Kudos to them for getting at least this far and giving us a great game. The Lions, look, the Lions, the city of Detroit, I give you all credit. And unlike most who would say, well, you all were classless in booing Stafford. No, they weren't. They weren't. I mean, he left. He didn't throw a middle finger to Detroit. I mean, he loves Detroit. But you have to understand, enemy territory closed. What do you expect the crowd to do? Yeah, they could be like, all right. They're going to cheer every time he did anything in that game? No, he won the Super Bowl, and it wasn't with the Lions. He won a Super Bowl. Okay, so now it's, they're feeling, well, it's our turn. We wish you did this for us, but congratulations, you're the past. Jared Goff's our future, so we're gonna roll with him. Get off our field. So I got that as a fan. That's pretty much what it was. So I'm happy for the city of Detroit. I'm happy for Jared Goff, because he got a chance to avenge basically the Rams and Sean McVay in particular, calling him a trash QB. He didn't say those words, but he treated him like a trash QB on his way out the door. And this is where Dan Campbell gets my kudos too. He poured into Goff. He says, you are NFL caliber, and we trust you. You are the man to lead this team, and I am telling you this. I'm giving you permission to lead this team. And it was no other place where that was evident than when he got a chance to say on third down, all right, complete this pass to Amon-Ra, and we go into figure formation. He could have run. He's like, no, you're going to throw for first down. Cheering the Sunday. And I'm so happy for Goff. So happy for him. Well, that completes all of our Super Wildcard recap. That was the game of the week as well. And when we come back, we'll get to our Gridiron Scoop. This is Total Football Talk.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? at 42, 989 on 2. Ready? Break.
We're just getting started. Total Football Talk will return right after this.
Everything Boston. I love you morons. New Kids on the Block, New Edition.
Dear whatever the law firm is. Sincerely, the U.S. Supreme Court.
Ben Affleck, Matt Damon. Go yourself again, Jason Whitlock.
Ready to hang with some fellas who know football? Let's ride. LC Muscles 28.
I think they're the most overrated defense in the league.
Steel Sermon.
We did not trail for a single second.
Tiny Tim.
McCarthy is a bonehead.
A Pizzle 90.
I'm going with my boys. Fins up, baby.
Get ready for the Four Horsemen of Peckham's. Every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central on YouTube. Poppy J.
You got the option to cry for the government. You got the option to protest. You got the option to keep buying. But this is also an option.
Wise El Jefe.
We're the first tech geeks. We're the first gamers. We're the first everything. Everything. Like Gen X's, we are the ones.
BS3 Network proudly presents the crew from the New York boroughs who never wants that smoke. Nah, they want that fire. Poppy J and Wise El Jefe. Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. Check your local listings for your viewing and listening pleasure. Back at it on Total Football Talk with Drew Willingham. I am Cole Johnson. What the heck? Okay. That was interesting.
What?
Something that I that was just strange. I just saw in the chat that happened, and it just threw me off a bit.
Why was Ryan McCarthy banned?
Yeah, because it wasn't for me, and I don't know it wasn't for you either. I'm like, I don't know. Okay.
I just plugged in my phone. I plugged in my phone and looked up.
I'm like, Ryan didn't say anything to be banned. I'm like, what? Like, okay.
I mean, I saw him put a shameless plug on there, but other than that, I don't think that deserves for him to get banned.
No.
Welcome back to Total Football Talk.
So sorry. Look, Ryan, we're gonna get that straight, man. I don't know what the deal was with that.
This is StreamYard be a StreamYard again.
He must be. Because I was actually going to read his comment and actually was going to plug him and say that he has a show tonight, no credentials required, 8 p.m. Eastern, where he and his cohort, Dustin, is going to pile on the Cowboys like we just did, and also drinking the Rams tears because, well, Dustin is a Seahawks fan. Of course, the Rams and Seahawks are in the NFC West. So both will make fun of the Cowboys, and Dustin's going to make fun of the Rams. And that's what I was going to do, but I saw that and it's like, what in the world? I didn't even click onto it. It just went bam to that. I'm like, okay.
And it just shows that it says at the bottom about him being banned and the comments removed. I'm like, what did he say except for a shameless plug?
Yeah, there was nothing. But I'm like, okay. Oh, Victor says, look, Gerald will be making moves to the liquor cabinets. I think he's been making moves for the last 2 days to the liquor cabinets. He says, yeah, he's sure that Gerald will be making those types of moves. Well, yeah, true. Yeah. All right. I'm thrown, but we'll continue on. Goodness gracious. One of our loyal followers getting banned, and we didn't ban him. So, Ryan, if you're watching this, my apologies. We didn't ban you. Neither one of us did. So I don't know what the deal is, but we'll straighten it out and get you back, brother.
Yeah,
but
my apologies too. I mean, I'm still gonna call you out for a shameless plug, but at the same time, I would not ban you for that.
I wouldn't either.
Because there have been times where I've thrown a little plug in there, and McCarthy has said it on his show too. So
right.
I don't understand what that is about, but StreamYard being StreamYard again is all I can come up with.
It probably is. Okay. Lord have mercy. This is sad. Well, speaking of sad and speaking of Gerald, he is meeting with the media in the bowels of AT&T Stadium, also known as Gerald World. But doing so every single postseason exit seems to be an annual tradition. So why wouldn't this season be different? Well, it might be because it's possible he might be looking for a new head coach. Why? Well, after the latest embarrassment 48-32 at home in the hands of the Green Bay Packers, which that made history also because this is the first time number 7 seed team beat a number 2 seed team. He's trying to be Corey, and he wouldn't go as far as to say, well, we're going to make a change, because he said, quote, I don't have any thoughts about the reasons why or anything to do with coaching or the players. I just want to give Green Bay a lot of compliments and credit. I mean, this seems like the most painful loss because we had all such great expectations and we had hopes for this team and we thought that we were aligned and in great shape. I mean, there's nothing said. There's nothing said. What I had planned to do was to be with McCarthy, going over how we played today, Sunday, and getting ready for the coming week. That's what was on the agenda. Tomorrow, my agenda will be to dismiss the team. Close quote. My question to you. When will Gerald get tired of having great regular seasons but disappointing playoff appearances and performances?
I think Gerald's already tired of it. I think he's just saying the right things to get through, and whether it's today or tomorrow, we could start seeing the fractures within his feelings of that come to light. Because when you think about the fact that Jerry Jones is 81 years old, he hasn't won in now 28 years by the end of this month. Right. So thinking about all that, you know, it's been since he was 53 years old was the last time the man won a Super Bowl. And he knows he doesn't have much more time left on this earth. I mean, he's got all the money in the world. He can, you know, extend his life and his health a little bit here and there because of his financial well-being. However, that doesn't mean he's going to be here 10 years from now, because anything could happen. So he needs to literally buy his championship now. And if he's going to do that, he has a very talented roster, probably one of the most talented rosters in recent years that he's had since the teams that he had 30 years ago. But part of it, and this was part of it that lacked towards the end of his tenure in Green Bay, there's certain elements to Mike McCarthy's coaching when it comes to the big games.
Oh, yes.
When it comes to the playoff games that he just can't get over the hump, except for that one season in 2010 when they went on that run and they won that Super Bowl in Green Bay. He has not been very successful at all when it comes to the playoffs. The furthest flirting with getting back will be a couple NFC championships, but still that was during his time with Green Bay. Hasn't gotten back to that point since he's been in Dallas. So at some point, you got to look at the fact of, you know, having 12-4 years or 12-5 years is great. The past couple seasons, 12-4 the first time. In looking at their production, the regular season is great, but when you get to the playoffs, you at least need to make it to the NFC Championship one out of these past 3 years. And had you made it to the NFC Championship this year and lost, I don't think that we would have as much shade thrown at you, but you didn't even get out of Super Wild Card weekend. So putting that in perspective and thinking about that, Gerald has got to have all this stuff going through his head right now. And will he get tired of the regular seasons, but disappointing playoffs? I think he's already tired of it. He's just being very, very well mannered in how he's saying it, because you didn't want to throw shade on the accomplishments of this season and being emotional like that after the game. I think he did the right thing. But whether it's today, tomorrow, or Thursday, one of these next 3 days, I have a feeling that we're going to have a major change in Dallas, and it could be with Mike McCarthy walking out the door, and not voluntarily.
Yeah, I was about to say, if you walked out the door, it wouldn't be a voluntary walking out the door. It would be a gnashing of teeth and tossing out the door. But yeah, I agree. I think old Jerry or Gerald, I think he is getting impatient, and he needs to be, because you can't go back to back to back seasons 12-5 and not even see the NFC Championship game with the team this talented, with a roster this talented, because you got to look somewhere. It has to be, well, it's not the talent. And to me, out of all these 3 losses they have had, none point to the preparation of the team or the coaching than Sunday's performance. You can sort of say, well, the players sort of bungled it up 2 years ago, especially with Dak not knowing what to do in situations where it's under 2 minutes to go and the team is down 6. And you can say that that's on Dak in 2 years ago. You can say last year, yeah, maybe a little bit was on McCarthy, but a little bit was on the players too. This one, to me, I can't really fault the players, and I can't really fault I can't really fault a player. It's like, okay, this is coaching. They're unprepared. So yeah, I think this is the season that I think you said it earlier. Dan Quinn, at least, I think, is going to be the guy that's going to walk. And I personally, that's what's going to happen. I think he's going to be the scapegoat of this and say, yeah, McCarthy's going on, but Quinn had to leave.
When was the last time we saw somebody going into a playoff game have a lot of hype at being a head coach, especially as a coordinator, but then before we even get to the Super Bowl, that guy not only is not only in the head coaching picks, but then still gets fired as a defensive coordinator? When was the last time we saw that?
It's been a minute. It's been a minute since it either has happened or we've seen it happen. But in recent memory, no, I haven't. I can't remember.
I don't recall it ever happening. Ever, to where we're talking about the last week of the season about how this person's going to be interviewing for head coaching vacancies. Okay. And then you can't start interviewing those same positioned coaches until after the divisional round, right? So they have to go through next weekend before they can start interviewing the following week. We haven't even gotten to that point yet. And this man went from being in head coaching vacancies, decision-making, to not only being removed from that, unless you're the Commanders make a stupid pick, or getting fired. In my lifetime, I've never heard of it. I'm going to have to go back and research that this week and talk about that when we bring this back up next week.
Yeah. But I look at it like this. Dan Quinn came back. And he could have been a head coach last year, but he came back because, well, he felt as though it was unfinished business. And more than likely, he probably thought, well, McCarthy might be not too long being in that position, and he might slide back to be a head coach again there. But I don't think that's going to happen. I personally think Quinn is going to leave with a pink slip in his hand. McCarthy should leave too. Not I'm rooting for it, but I'm just thinking this team has gone as far as they can with him. They're too talented, and they need to be guided somehow better. And McCarthy's not it, and Quinn, unfortunately, darn sure is not it. Kellen Moore, anybody? Speaking of head coaching vacancies and those who are looking to be a head coach somewhere, Jim Harbaugh He now is making waves and is about to have interviews in the next few days. Now, the Chargers are the first team that Harbaugh is meeting with to speak, and that's going to happen this week. He's also going to meet with the Broncos. Well, he met with them last year, and he probably going to meet with them this year too. Who knows? And he met with the Vikings before they settled on their head coach last year as well. Of course, Harbaugh is coming off not John Harbaugh, Jim. He's coming off a national championship victory at Michigan, and he is 60. And he spent the last 9 years there in Ann Arbor with an 89-25 record. And prior to being the head coach, he led the 49ers for 4 seasons, produced a Super Bowl trip, an NFC championship and a Super Bowl trip, and an NFC championship appearance the year after. Produced a 44-19-1 record there. And he also had a head coaching stint at San Diego, at University of San Diego and Stanford. He also was quarterback for the Chargers, and before then, the Bears, and before then, the Colts. Now, my question to you is the following. Is Jim Harbaugh doing this to get a bigger check from Michigan?
No, I don't think so. There's been talks within the circles of him coming back to the NFL because he wants to win a Super Bowl, something that he did not have the opportunity to do as a player, for one. He's already gone back to his alma mater and won a national championship. Okay. Unless you're trying to do what Nick Saban did at Alabama, winning 6 championships, which, Jim Harbaugh is 60 years old. That's just not going to happen. It could, but you would have to be betting on the next 10 years, winning 5 out of the next 10 years.
Right.
And that's just something that's very hard to do. And now that the NIL deals and the way that college is structured, it makes it 10 times harder to accomplish what Alabama and Saban were doing during those years that maybe with the NIL deal wasn't there, but there might have been some stuff going on in the dark, if you know what I'm saying. We're not going to completely throw it out there, but there were still things going on to help them to that stature that nowadays it's a little bit more even keeled when it comes to the playing field due to these NIL deals, when it comes to how all of these things are. But I think Jim Harbaugh wants an opportunity to do something that not many coaches have had the opportunity to do, and going back to coach a team that they played for one, but also go back and coach a team to success that they played for. I think the only person that I can really think of that did that was Mike Ditka, because Ditka played for the Bears. I mean, he played for the Cowboys and won Super Bowl, but then he also played for the Bears before that, and then he went back to his team and coached them to a championship. And that's the only head coach that comes to mind that went back to a team that they had previously played for and done that. And I think that Jim Harbaugh wants to enter that legendary club that, not many people have had the opportunity to do, and somebody to do that from the quarterback position, because what many starting quarterbacks do we know that have been head coaches in the NFL? Jim Harbaugh wasn't like legendary, like up there with Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Joe Montana, as far as that stature type of quarterback,
but he did start.
But he started, and he was relevant enough to where when we think of him still as the quarterback, the gunslinging quarterback who played with the Bears when he first came out from Michigan, who played with the Colts before Peyton Manning came the following year, who played with the Baltimore Ravens early in their days. And then after the Ryan Leaf debacle in San Diego, he played there from 99 to 2000, and then winding down his career in Detroit and Carolina in 2001. From that point forward, Jim Harbaugh, the following year after retiring, which many players take a year off when they come out of the NFL, take a year off or two and do some things, some philanthropy things, volunteer, whatever it is. He went right into coaching the year after he retired. In 2002, from 2002 to 2003, was the quarterback's coach in Oakland, followed by the head coach at San Diego University and Stanford from 2004 to 2010. And then we all know what he did by coming to the 49ers, leading them to a Super Bowl appearance, and then going to Michigan. I think leading the 49ers to a Super Bowl appearance, him going to Michigan, seeing what the 49ers have done since he's been at Michigan and getting close again and not quite being able to do it, and then seeing what the 49ers have accomplished this year and last year with Brock Purdy and having the opportunity to go. I know this is a long-winded answer, but when I think about Jim Harbaugh doing this to get a bigger check from Michigan, the only way I would think that he would be doing that for Michigan is if he plans on having some type of career like Nick Saban and staying there until his early 70s and racking up a few more championships to try to get close to that. But something in me, based on what I've been listening to, and reading and watching, and just thinking about all that stuff and weighing all the pros and cons, when you think about Jim Harbaugh's quarterback career, he had some flashes in the pan and had some good moments, but he never got to a Super Bowl. I think that with all that being said, the fact that he got to the Super Bowl, the 49ers, and didn't win, it stung him a little bit. He's accomplished the feat as a national champion head coach. He wants to do something that's very rarely been done. I can't recall if it's ever been done, where you've won a national championship and a Super Bowl. I think he's just trying to be a rare commodity here and something that's a good goal to have. Go out there, win a Super Bowl. In the Los Angeles Chargers, give him one of the best opportunities out of the head coaching vacancies to pull that off.
Well, I will make Cowboys fan very happy. That has been done. Jimmy Johnson is the guy. Won with Miami, and then, of course, won a Super Bowl with the Cowboys about 4 or 5 years in between. But yeah. But to your point, though, that trick has been turned very little. So yeah, I agree with you. And is Harbaugh doing this for a check? If he was my age, and I'll be 51 in 3 months. If he was my age, I'd probably say he's doing it to try to get a bigger payday from Michigan, and he's going to probably stay there until he retires. But he's 60 and he seems to be geared up for new challenges. That seems to be, and how you laid it out, that seems to be how it was when he was a player. That definitely seems how it is with his resume as a coach. Why would he change now? Well, we got a chance to see a playoff game, or did we? And that is the game between the Dolphins and the Chiefs. Yes, we already covered the game itself and what took place on it and in it. But NBC was happy because the AFC wildcard game between the Dolphins and the Chiefs on Saturday was the most streamed live event in U.S. history, so says the Peacock network. Now, according to the same day and live data from Nielsen, the victory by the Chiefs was the NFL's first ever exclusively streamed playoff game, and the game averaged 23 million viewers, and it reached a total of almost 28 million viewers. Those numbers include NBC stations in Miami and KC, of course, where the hometown Chiefs did a 45-1 rating, and on mobile with NFL Plus. The matchup's average peak, which was about 25 million viewers, came in second quarter from the 9:15 and 9:30 time slot, according to Nielsen, which includes out-of-home viewerships. Now, NBC was not, and Roger Goodell said that he couldn't be happy with the partnership they had with Peacock, and this seems to be a victory. But my question to you, sir, was exclusively streaming a playoff game a waste of time or a harbinger of things to come?
As much as I don't want to say it, I think it is a harbinger of things to come. Yeah. This I think I said this in our group chat the other day, but I'm not sure if I did. This reminds me of, a couple of decades ago when, at least in our area here in Virginia, where back in the day, 30, 40 years ago, you could easily have a set of rabbit ears, tin foil, move the one arm to the left, the other one to the right a certain way, and you can get whatever sports channel you needed as far as NBC, CBS during football times. You could watch all the football games, or at least in the area, the local area ones, through the major networks, CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox, like the 4 major stations, right? And you could do it with rabbit ears. Then they did away with that about 20 years ago to where things moved to digital, to where it made you to where you had to have a cable subscription in order to watch those channels. And then if you wanted to watch the further extended channels, you needed to get like, NFL Network or, the Sunday Ticket or the Red Zone or whatnot. Okay. That was the beginning of it 20 years ago when they started making us pay for, cable to watch this stuff. Now things have advanced beyond that to where we've had streaming services which have gotten big over the past 10 years with Netflix on up to now. We got Peacock, Paramount Plus, and all these other different things that are showcasing sporting events. For this to happen, you are now making it to where the older generation, ones that are generations above Cole and I now, we're talking 70 to 80 to 90-year-olds who are not privy to technology. They rely on us, the younger generation, to help them out there. The ones who are not privy to technology having to figure out how to use Peacock. I cannot tell you, besides the post that I saw on the interwebs this weekend, but my friends and other people close to me reaching out to me and saying about how annoying it was. I mean, they did it anyway, but like how annoying it was for them to either walk them through their parent or grandparent, or in some cases great-grandparent, over the phone on how to set up Peacock because they were too far away, or even the ones that lived close enough that had to drop what they were doing and drive to their house to set up Peacock or sign them into their account or whatever the case may be, just so the person could watch the game. Okay. There was a lot of that going on this weekend. So, however, it didn't seem to stop the numbers from spiking, whether they were slightly, elevated a little bit. Those numbers might not be completely accurate, but if they are accurate, I think that it's going to be a sign of things to come, because with it being the most watched live streaming event, I think we got a chance to next season see more games that we're going to have a streaming service for, unfortunately. And for those of you who are trying to cut out cable services or some streaming services altogether, at least Peacock, it looks like you're going to be keeping that for a while, if that's going to be a sign of things to come.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it is. And I think with the onset of having Thursday night football exclusively streamed on Prime Video, I'm thinking harbinger of things to come is where it's leading. And yeah, I think the NFL is dealing with the more tech savvy individuals, though, those in my generation and younger, because I think they want to head off. This sounds really harsh, archaic viewing habits. And so they're seeing that more and more people stream and less people sit in front of TVs. Although I think when it comes to the NFL, that's a little different, but they still want to head that off at the pass before they have to be in the same spot as, say, I don't know, like Major League Baseball, where they feel as though they have to catch up in trying to get the younger viewer to want to watch the product. They don't want to be there, and they want to be ahead of it. And doing this is being ahead of the curve. It just may cost you a couple extra bucks to do it. I don't know what to tell you on that one. But congratulations to the NFL. Congratulations to the NBC. Congratulations to Peacock. I mean, hey, it must have worked. And we'll be seeing that again.
I think Amazon Prime's going to get in on that action next playoff season, because I was actually surprised this year, to hear Peacock got in on it, because we do see a lot of Sunday Night Football and NBC, but seeing how many Thursday night games we've now watched over the past couple seasons on Amazon Prime, I would have thought Amazon Prime would have been the one that we had a playoff stream for this season. But I'm going to bet next season that we'll have not only one on Peacock at least, but one on Amazon Prime too.
Oh, I agree. I 100% agree with you. I think next year we will probably see a playoff game being exclusively streamed on Amazon Prime too. I agree. So yeah, if you don't like it, oh well. If you like it, that's cool. Change is coming, and NFL is going streaming.
Total football talk.
Where are my dogs at? That's right. The grand champ is here. We get to award our dogs of the week. And for his dog, Drew, the floor is yours.
It's really, really tough to pick this one this week. I want to pick a particular person, but I want to save that one for Cole because I got a feeling that's where he's going to go this week. And I don't want us to have the same pick. And the person I'm going to pick actually had fairly close numbers to that person. And considering who he was up against in comparison to what the other person I would have picked, the both options that I had here, in my opinion, faced two really stellar defenses that we had seen throughout the entire season, throughout the entire 2023 season. Yeah. And thinking about this overhyped team that we have been talking about for a few years that they had to face, okay, and one that we definitely lit up earlier in this show, I have to give my dog of the week to Jordan Love. 16 of 21, 272 yards, 3 touchdowns, did not turn the ball over. Also had a stud running back behind him that was helping leading the charge with another 3 touchdowns on the ground. You could have arguably given it to him too. Between the two of them and their head coach, Matt LaFleur, you could have given it to him too because of his aggressive play calling in situations that other teams were too skittish to make calls on against this defense that they had been facing all season long. The Packers showed up from the first play of the game on, and when we saw that this game was at 20-0, then to 27-0 at one point before the Cowboys scored at the end of the first half regulation to make it 27-7. You can ask Cole here in the comments, like, I was absolutely loving it each and every second of that game and was talking about how I was on cloud 9 just from watching this game this past weekend. So as much as I kind of wanted to go with the other pick, I got a feeling he's going to go with that. So I and it wasn't a bad pick either to even be a 1A or a 1B. They both were dogs of the week. So 1A, 1B, it doesn't matter. They were both the top tier. And that's why in this particular fashion, I'm going to pick Jordan Love as my dog of the week.
And much deserved. I mean, first playoff start, and he was flawless in the game. I mean, he was flawless, and it was a big moment for him. And he was one of the biggest reasons why the team performed the way they did and why now they're going on to the next round. So, yeah, that's a good pick. It is. It is. And if I were to try to hate on that, I would be a fool to do so. Now, yes, I am glad that my brother did leave this pick for me. But if he picked him, I would not have felt bad. Of course, I got to go with my brother C.J. Stroud. For those who don't know, he is the starting quarterback for the Houston Texans, rookie, the youngest rookie starting QB to win a playoff game. And with similar stats as to Jordan Love, 16-21, 274 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, no fumbles, and did not get sacked one time. Yes, I know this is more along the lines of, well, when you say sacks, that sort of is an offensive line thing. Yeah, it somewhat is. But it also is a quarterback thing too, because QBs can aid or hurt in their bids to either prevent sacks or to walk into them. So I give massive credit to Stroud. I mean, he has been a steady hand, and in a moment where you think he would be unsteady, he showed no nerves. And he tore up the team that was considered the best defense in the league and made them look rather pedestrian. Kudos to them. Kudos to DeMeco Ryans, the head coach of the team. Kudos to Christian Harris, who was flying over the field and got a pick six. Kudos to the secondary and Steven Nelson for the pick six from 82 yards. And the defense as a whole for giving the convoy in blocking for him. This was a team effort. This was a team win. And yes, Laramie Tunsil, you get a part of this too, my brother, because you were my X factor in this game, and you only allowed Myles Garrett to get 2 tackles in it, and none of them were sacks. You did your thing and then some. The offensive line did their thing and then some. But CJ Stroud, who is the steady hand, gets the lion's share of it. You are my dog of the week, and my brother, I hope that this is just a harbinger of things to come for you, because if this is how you play in your first playoff game, whoo, man, you might have some epic performances coming up, and it might not be in the distant future. It might be in the near one. We'll be right back.
Coming up next, the featured attractions. This is Total Football Talk. Comey Media Incorporated, creating content magic in the real world.
This little right here. Look at the inside of these cakes. Now, when you bite into it, just as I demonstrated while you were talking at the beginning of your discussion right there, I could taste the drugs inside of this cake, Sick. I could taste the addiction within the cream filling of this cake right here, to where they not only just with that cake right there, but they made an ice cream out of it. They made an ice cream out of it. A 1-pint Christmas tree cake ice cream. Look at that little just smile up there. Look, she is up to no good on there. Look at that. Look at that smile on there, Sick. She knows that she got you. Got him is what's in her mind right now.
Acknowledge me.
Look at that little smile right there. She's up to no good.
D. Willie in the evening. Thursdays at 11:15 p.m. Eastern, 10:15 p.m. Central. Exclusively on Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, look. Hey, stop playing games. Y'all already know. Go ahead and toss him some Willie Bucks. Ain't nobody playing around. Hey, $sign D Willie 87. Go ahead, hit him up on the Cash App, and go ahead and give him some Willie Bucks. Look at Drew looking stoic, ladies and gentlemen. Stoic on that $10 bill. So go ahead, slide my man over some Willie Bucks, and we good. That's all I'm saying. We good. How about some Willie Bucks?
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
If you're looking for a sports program that gives you the flavor.
Washington Commanders? Really?
This whole thing stinks to high heaven.
That pulls no punches.
Thuggish act by a thuggish actor.
That gives you some humor.
Praise everything LeBron does and never criticize it.
If you want a show that gives you good times, then this is that show. BS3 Network proudly presents.
I am Colt Johnson, and welcome to
Cole Sports with a Z. Every Friday on Patreon, and every Saturday on YouTube, Spreaker, and all other outlets.
with Drew Willingham. I am Cole Johnson. Welcome back to Total Football Talk, and this is where we get to have those picks. So, Mick, the picks are right here for you, brother. Oh, and Sick, who of course is part of the Little Debbie's commercial of D. Willing Eating, he says those Little Debbie cakes are dangerous. Stay away from them.
Let me talk to you.
Lord. Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh, those D Willie cakes. I mean, the Little Debbie cakes. Lord have mercy. Let me stop. Let me stop. Featured attractions. This is where we put the spotlight on the games that matter, and well, all 4 of these games matter because, well, the 4 winners will advance to the NFC/AFC championship games. So we will begin, and we'll do this in chronological order. All times are Eastern that we will talk about. The Texans are first. They are on the road. They go to M&T Bank Stadium to play the Ravens. Of course, they are the number 1 seed in the AFC. As the AFC's top 4 ranked teams advanced in the wild card round. The Ravens are 9.5-point favorites. The kickoff is at 4:30 p.m. on Saturday. ESPN/ABC will carry the coverage on TV. Now, we got a chance to witness the Texans. How can I say this? They have grown up literally right before our very eyes. And they're steadied by, you could say they're steadied by C.J. Stroud, but I think they're also steadied on defense by Christian Harris and Will Anderson, both stud Alabama linebackers. And now they're playing a big role in the Texas defense. And of course, there is Derek Stingley of the secondary. And then, of course, with the wide receivers, you have Nico Collins. And every now and then in the backfield, Devin Singletary contributes, and you have the offensive line anchored by Laramie Tunsil, probably one of the most athletic left tackles you got in the game today. All of what I've laid out in front of you, do they have a shot of beating the Ravens? Okay. There's some strange sounds that's coming from, I don't know what is happening. I can hear, I hate to say it, you sound like a mouse. Or it sound like I'm pressing rewind or fast forward. That's what it's sounding like. Same. What the? Come on now, StreamYard, do better. Do better. All right, now my answer to that question is yes. I think they do have a shot, and then this is the fan hats off, the analyst hat is on. What the Texans have to do is really simple.
All right, what about
there
now?
We go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I sound normal now.
Yes, you sound like yourself now.
All right, I don't know what was going on with StreamYard there, but we are back. And when it comes to this, the Ravens, I feel like when it comes to this game right here, I feel like the Texans do have a chance to win this game. Going back, and I've gone back since 2017, the Ravens haven't gotten out of the divisional round. And the Texans, have made it to the divisional round at this point.
They have.
Now, the Ravens are a different team this year. They made some moves last offseason with everything I just said in mind. They want to at least get to the AFC Championship and further. Lamar Jackson has definitely proven this year that he is more than a quarterback with just the ability to run here and there. He has definitely gone back to his previous MVP-like form that we have seen at one point and has the weapons to do so. And also, they have a pretty good defense that has stayed relatively healthy throughout the majority of this year. When was the last time that the Ravens had a really good defense that wasn't banged up by the start of the playoffs? I can't think of the last time that I saw a team like this for this Baltimore team. And they also had a week to rest as well. Now, in some cases, and we've seen it before, having that week off is either a pro or a con. And I got a feeling that one of these two number one seed teams this year, whether it's the 49ers or the Ravens, one of them is going to feel the brunt of that 1 week off, icing them a little bit. So, and in an area where there's colder weather, I think that we have a chance to potentially see Baltimore get iced, considering that it's been a while since we've seen some positive production early on in the rounds of the playoffs. And that's why I got to say that here, that they have a shot to beat the Ravens, that being the Texans.
I think the same. Judging by the fact that I think the defensive style of the Ravens is similar. I won't say the exact same, but similar to what the Browns do. And I'm not saying it because, Stroud carved up the Browns. I mean, the Ravens have a week of tape, and they can probably do things that the Browns couldn't. But I don't see there isn't anything defensively that the Ravens do that makes me say, "Oh wow, I'm having to put this all on pause." That there isn't anything they do. Not saying they're bad. They're really stout. They're athletic. They, as a unit, play really good. But I believe that the Texans offensively as a unit, they play well too. So I'm looking at it from that standpoint. Now, to me, where I think the Ravens can make hay would be when they have the ball. Not to dump on the Texas defense. I think they're good and they're really solid against the run. I think they could be had against the pass because to my liking, the secondary gambles just a wee bit much one to get picks. So I think that's where they could be had. But my issue, though, with the Ravens in general is there's times that it seems to me that Lamar Jackson carries a load. Now, you did mention, though, this year, he's tapered that back a little bit. And he's been a lower pedestrian, and he's picked his spots more in running out the pocket. But I'm not seeing anybody that actually could carry the load, although they did pick up Dalvin Cook. He might. But can somebody else besides Lamar Jackson carry the rushing load?
It was a smart pickup for them to pick up Dalvin Cook. I don't know if it was smart on the Jets to release him as early as they did, because he just basically gave somebody else a belated holiday present.
Mm-hmm.
But Gus Edwards and Justice Hill have tried their best to carry the load at times. And, they've been racking up more rushing yards than Lamar, but as far as yards per attempt and impact from the rushing side, Lamar Jackson still got him beat, unfortunately, even with lesser attempts per game. If they can revert back to the defensive style of what they had when they played the 49ers, towards the end of the season, I want to say it was like week 15 or 16. It was 16, week 16 when they faced the 49ers at home. Mm-hmm. If they can revert back to their defensive style there, it won't really matter as much if they can force the other quarterback to throw 4 interceptions like Brock Purdy did in that game, because that's what the difference maker was and why the Ravens won that game anyway. Right. So if that's going to be the type of style they're going to have to unleash on these teams, or starting in this divisional round, you're going to have to lean more of your defensive production than you are on your offense's rushing attack in this game. And this isn't the type of Ravens defense that we were accustomed to seeing in the early 2000s that helped them get that first Super Bowl. But it's probably the closest defense that I can recall the Ravens having since that 2000 Super Bowl, because when they won it in 2012, the team was more well balanced. It had a good defense still, not as good as that first Super Bowl winning Baltimore defense, but they were a little bit more balanced on offense than they were in that first Super Bowl because Joe Flacco showed up for that playoff run. So that's the difference between the first two Super Bowls. I think this particular playoff team has the defensive strength of that first Super Bowl, but also the quarterback is a lot stronger than that first Super Bowl's quarterback. The one thing that is going to expose them if they lean on it too much or too little is that rushing game, because they definitely don't have the ace back there unless Dalvin Cook takes off. I think it was a smart move, but I think that they should have tried to get him earlier in the season and given him more time to establish himself within the playbook, because how many plays can you really call for somebody you just signed a week or so ago?
Not too many.
And what kind of impact does that really make? I think that might help give you some more viable options, but I don't think it's going to impact the game as much as some people would like it to.
Yeah, I agree. And to me, that is where I believe the Ravens can really beat the Texans if they can get a performance. It may not have to be Cook. It may be a cadre of a team of running backs. But if they can get 150 to 200 yards on the ground against Texas, which is possible because 2 weeks ago we saw Jonathan Taylor get almost 200 yards on the ground against them. So if you can get that, then I really do think the Ravens can beat the Texans, because that means the one thing that the Texans need to have is CJ Stroud on the field. He's off the field. That's a problem for the Texans. So what do you have in this game between the Ravens hosting the Texans?
I want the Texans to win. I want the Texans to win for you and to continue the special season that they've been on. I mean, I really like CJ Stroud. I like the young team. I like D'Amico Ryans. I like the energy they bring to the games. And I think it's going to be a better game than what most people are anticipating. I think that some people are thinking the Ravens are coming here to absolutely mollywop the Texans. It's not going to happen. It is not going to be like the Packers and the Cowboys. It's going to be an interesting game. Can the Ravens win by 10? Yeah, but that's still a better game than watching a 48-32 game with the Packers and the Cowboys, and especially the 32-9 game that we saw from the Bucs and the Eagles last night. I mean, that was – you should have gone to bed early last night like I did. It was – I didn't even watch the full end because I knew that it was over. I knew it was more likely Kelsey's last ride. That was just something that, we all knew coming into that more than likely, towards the second half at least.
Yeah.
In this with the Texans and the Ravens, I think it'll be close, but I think the Ravens are going to take this. I think the biggest game for the Texans happened this past weekend. And it's still something you can build on this off season, but unfortunately the Ravens just have a strong enough team and they are ready for this moment. And Lamar Jackson has willed them to this point. I think the Ravens taking, I think the 9.5 point spread's a pretty fair one.
Yeah. Of course, I'm rooting for the Texans. There's no question about that. But you know me, I'm a very objective guy. And I'm not going to stray here. What the Ravens can do, I think, better than the Browns did is run the ball. And I look at those two teams as similar. And if the Ravens can be rendered one-dimensional, I like the Texans' chances better. I don't think they can render the Ravens one-dimensional. I don't think they can. And because of that, I think also the Ravens will win this too. And Mick says the Ravens as well. Sick, he says, what are the chances of OBJ dancing like Ray Lewis in that game? Probably on introductions, more than likely. And he might do it if he scores a TD. But yeah, I don't think I think the Texans stand a really good chance, but I think the Ravens can do the one thing that the Browns couldn't, and that's run the ball better. And I think that will eliminate the Texans. But yes, I agree with you. They have something to build on in the offseason, and I think the buck stops with them Saturday afternoon. I don't want it to be, but I think it is because the Ravens are just a better team overall. All right, Saturday, kickoff 8 p.m. On Fox, the 49ers, the other 1 seed, they host the Packers. The 49ers are favored by 10. We both know who you want to win, but we'll talk about that later. The Packers, we got a chance to see them, and I mentioned earlier, starting Thanksgiving, that defense seemed to wake up, and now they're playing a lot more cohesive. And along with the defense waking up, seemingly, Jordan Love has solidified himself on the offensive end, leading this team at quarterback. But my X factor to me is Aaron Jones. I've always thought, and I still feel as though the team goes as far as Aaron Jones literally can carry them. So is it possible that Aaron Jones can repeat what he did against the Cowboys against the 49ers Saturday night?
No. No, not with the moves the 49ers have made with this defense. I know Mick's picking Green Bay, and I would love to pick Green Bay here, and we'll get into that more in a second. But when it comes to the running attack, 3 touchdowns and over 100 some yards on this top tier defense of the 49ers, I don't think so. I love to see it happen, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen. What I think gives the Packers, I think, maybe a little bit of hope in that department is there's been some times when the rushing attack of opposing teams can actually give the interior defensive line of the 49ers headaches. So it's possible they can do that, but do I think they could do it from the tune of 21 carries, 118 yards, and 3 touchdowns? No. So to me, the 49ers defense, I love the fact that they are about, you pretty much know what they're about. They're about getting after the QB. They're about putting that pressure on them and forcing the opposing QB to make a mistake. And hopefully they can mitigate damage with the run game. Now, on the offensive side of the 49ers, what I like about them is they are also predictable, but they execute well. Protect number 13 at all costs and make the game as completely comfortable as possible, because the more comfortable Purdy is, the more successful the whole team is. So how will the 49ers make Brock Purdy comfortable against the Packers' seemingly improved pass rush?
Dink and dunk plays, but I think it's going to happen a little bit more than what we've seen from this 49ers offense. We're going to see a little bit more screen passes, a little bit more dink and dunks here and there. They're going to have to establish the run as much as they possibly can.
Agreed.
But I don't think we're going to be seeing 30-yard bombs, 30 and 40-yard bombs to Debo. I think that the Packers defense is going to structure them, kind of put them in little what was the way I was watching the Peyton Manning and Eli Manning broadcast last night? The way they described it is Ray Lewis described it as cupping, like putting them in certain little spots.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we're going to see a little bit more defensive style maneuvering from the Packers when it comes to that, and it's going to minimize the big play from the 49ers. So I think that's what we're going to have to look forward to in this game.
Yeah, and to me, that actually plays into the 49ers' hands offensively, because they had no problems with the short game. And I think that is what the 49ers will do. I think they will. I love that, the dink and dunks, bubble screens, and just short passes just to build the confidence up. Not to say that really Purdy needs it. He already has 2 playoff wins under his belt, and he has been undefeated in the playoffs at home. So it's not necessarily I'm thinking, well, his confidence will be rattled. I just think that the whole team would be settled when he is. So between the 49ers and the Packers, who do you think is going to advance to the NFC Championship game?
Well, following off of what you just said, I think that if Brock Purdy's confidence wasn't rattled after the 3 straight wins earlier this season, there's not much that can rattle his confidence. It's going to be the rest of the team around him bringing his overall production down more than him in his own head. So that's what I have to say for that. When it comes to this game right here, what I think the outcome is going to be, I think the 49ers are going to win this game. I'd like to pick the Packers to win this game. The 49ers are at home. You brought up a very good point about Brock Purdy being undefeated at home in playoff games, at this point. And the record speaks for itself. His production speaks for itself. And I just don't think of any other way unless the Packers can find a way to put up nearly 50 points again, like they did in this past game against the Cowboys. The 49ers the 49ers, Mick, I'm about to find a way to, however, Brian got banned. I'm about to ban you because I just started talking for one. So when it comes to this situation right here, the 49ers, they have a tougher defense than the Cowboys do. Okay.
Right.
When it comes to absolutely. When it comes to that right there, the moves they made, Chase Young and the other moves they made, especially in the past offseason with the draft, they've got a tougher defense. I think it's going to be a closer game. I don't think it's going to be a routing, but the Packers are not scoring 48 points again. I think it's going to be like something along the lines, maybe 27-21, the 49ers. It's going to be a close one, but it's going to be something that Jordan Love just can't quite overcome. Brock Purdy's going to have the answer.
I think you hit the nail on the head for me. I think there's two things and two factors where I see the 49ers actually taking this game, and that is I think the pressure that the 49ers can bring on Jordan Love would be a little too much for them to handle. And then on the other side, there's Christian McCaffrey. There's something that the Cowboys did not bring to the table, and that is something the 49ers can bring to the table. A hardcore pass rush on defense, and a stud on offense that can carry the rock, and if necessary, can carry the rock many, many times in a game. So I like the Packers' chances. I don't think they will come out with a W. I hate to say it. I think the Packers are somewhat tailor-made for the 49ers to beat. Not convincingly, but I think the way they are structured, I think the 49ers can beat them. And they can beat them comfortably, but not in a rout. I think 6 to 10 points is pretty much the margin of victory I see, but that'd be good enough. All right. So we get to Sunday, and the first game is at 3 p.m. NBC will be carrying it. Detroit gets to host their second home game at Ford Field in as many weeks as they have Tampa come into town. And the Bucs will be 6-point underdogs when they do. We'll start with the Bucs. We saw a lot of team defense. It was beautifully executed against the Eagles. You knew the game plan. It was okay. They're gonna go to Devontae Smith. We'll let them go Devontae Smith as much as they want, just as long as we eliminate the real deep pass and the deep threat to him, and we limit the running. We do that. I think we'll have a chance to come out of Raymond James a victor, and that's what happened, and that's what they did. The offense, good but not great, and I see a problem. Maybe with not relying on Rachaad White enough. Although he had a decent game last night, I think he needs to have a better game Sunday. So will the Buccaneers find enough offensive balance to beat the Lions?
I think so. I think that they can, because they proved it in this past game. They did it against a team that had just made it to the Super Bowl the year before. Almost the week before, the year before. Even though this will sound different when I give my actual prediction at the end of this take. I feel like that the offense has enough balance to beat the Lions because they found enough offensive balance to beat the Eagles. So if they can beat a team that they just did yesterday, they just went to the Super Bowl last year, that didn't make that many changes in the offseason to at least make it on paper seem like this was going to happen, I feel like they have a chance with their offensive balance to beat the Lions.
Yeah, I do too. And and to me, I think that was the reason why the Lions beat the Rams. I mean, the Rams was able to throw it all over the place. Well, at least throw it to Nakua all over the place, as he got half of the 367 yards that Stafford accrued against the Lions secondary. But limiting Kyron Williams, I think, was the key defensively to what they were able to accomplish and achieve. And I think if Rachaad White can get going, I think it will be a little bit more of a nail biter, even more so than the game they just played this past Sunday. But I have to give it up to the Lions. They could have faltered in the second half. They raced out to a double-digit lead. They weren't really all that great in execution on offense the rest of the way after they got their third touchdown. They only managed a field goal the rest of the way. After the first 3 drives of 75 yards, and they ended all 3 of them with touchdowns. But they did not all the way falter. They held their ground. They dug in their heels. They were going to not be denied. And the Rams, they gave it all they could, but the Rams, they were denied, and the Lions were not. And there's this euphoria all over Detroit. You know, this is something they haven't done in 32 years. And this is the second playoff victory they have had in 66. So will there be a letdown after getting the first playoff victory since 1992 for the Lions? Or for the team?
I think potentially we could see it. If the Buccaneers come out clicking on all cylinders like they did this past Super Wildcard weekend, there's a good chance that we could definitely see that happen with the Lions. You know, there was the curse of the great Bambino for the Red Sox. There could be the curse of the great BS for the Lions, being Barry Sanders. So we could see that coming into fruition a little bit more this upcoming weekend, but at least they got over the hump with the victory this past weekend in the Super Wildcard weekend. So we can quite a bit in the past minute, but at least in this situation, you got to give the Lions their credit where it was due from the past weekend. But I think that we could potentially see a letdown in this upcoming week against the Bucs.
Yeah. And it's such a feel-good story. I don't want it to end, you know, but I could see it. I could see it ending because, you know, Detroit, the whole city, dare say, and I've seen many events in Detroit. I mean, heck, I've witnessed the Pistons raise the Larry O'Brien trophy multiple times there. I've even seen the Tigers win a World Series. And yet I don't think I've ever heard Detroit, the city, I don't think I've ever heard them be as raucous. Even when they beat the Cowboys 32 years ago in the Silverdome, I don't think I've heard Detroit as raucous as they were Sunday. And I can see how they have this moment. They have this victory. They beat their former quarterback who played there for over a decade. And I can feel, I can see this collective sigh of relief. We got over the hump. And this malaise could come over. I don't want it to happen. I'm not saying it is. I just don't want it to happen. But the human tendency is saying it could. So who do you have between the Buccaneers and the Lions?
It's literally a toss-up 1 minute to another. I would really love to see the Lions make it into the NFC Championship for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
At the same time, you know, as much shade as I've thrown on Bunker Stayfield, you know, throughout this year, it would be kind of cool to see them go back to the NFC Championship, something that Tom Brady tried to do the last couple of years after winning the Super Bowl with the Bucs and couldn't quite get them there.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, it's going to be a cool story next week for us to cover, whether it's the Lions or the Bucs in the NFC Championship, whichever one of these two teams, whether whether it's Bunker Stayfield and the Bucks, or if it's Jared Goff and the Lions with Man Campbell. I really want to pick the Lions at home, but something is telling me that the way that this defense is playing for Tampa Bay, along with the way that Baker, as I will say now, has been leading the offensive charge. As long as he's been leading the offensive charge and throwing those 3 touchdowns this past week, staying productive and not turning the ball over, I think the Buccaneers have a chance to win this game. I think it's going to be close. It's going to be by less than a touchdown. It's going to be like 6 points or less. I feel like the Buccaneers get this win by a field goal or 2 in margin of victory.
All right, so this is your upset. Okay. And the Lions are favored by 6. Okay. And I agree with you. Whoever comes out of this game will be a darling, no question. Maybe for the exception of we see the 49ers get upended by the Packers, but I don't think it's going to happen. But yeah, whether it's the Bucks or the Lions, it would be great. And Mick picks the Lions. He also picked the Packers in the Packers 49ers game. I will go the other way, not because I'm trying to be contrary, but I think the Bucks have what it takes to actually beat the Lions. I just think the Lions have just enough. It's sort of like, to me, which team will make the one extra play to win? And I think it's that type of game. And I think the Lions can make that one extra play that the Bucks can't. And I mean, it's going to be like one extra play. And it could be the same thing. It could be they win by 1 point like they did this coming Sunday. I just don't think the Bucks can beat the Lions with that one play they cannot make. And I think it's that more than anything. However, would I be surprised if the Bucks beat the Lions? No, I wouldn't be surprised at all. And welcome 49er fan. Niner gang. You already know that we picking the Lions to go in the NFC Championship. I hope everything's good with you, sir. He's hoping for a Lions 49ers NFC Championship.
I think that'd be a good championship. Like, my heart says Lions this weekend, but just watching the Bucks over the past month, I just have a feeling that they're going to upset the Lions this weekend, and I feel like it's a more favorable upset than the Packers beating the 49ers.
It is. I will jump on that. It is the more favorable choice for an upset. The only reason why I will not go with the upset is I saw how they played at home against the Saints when they should have wrapped up the NFC South then. And I'm like, okay, this team can have moments of letdown still, even down the stretch. I'm like, okay, this team can still have moments of letdown. And of course, I can say the same thing about the Lions. I mean, heck, they could have wrapped up the NFC North sooner, and then they laid that egg on Thanksgiving at home against the Packers. So, yeah, I mean, it could go both ways, no question. And then, dare say, I think this would be the game of the week. I think you have the Chiefs and the Bills. And, of course, they met at this point 2 years prior in one of the best playoff games I think we've ever seen, where there was 4 lead changes from the 2-minute warning to the end of the game. And it actually was overtime before it was all decided, where it was ridiculously good. And these teams seem to play close games even this year when they were in Arrowhead and the Bills got a W. They seem to match up well with each other. And the Bills, and the line is predicted, they're only favored by 2.5, although they are at home in Orchard Park. CBS/Paramount Plus will carry the game. 6:30 kickoff on Sunday, which now they're getting to the Super Bowl era type of starts, where you will see the early game kickoff at 3 on Sunday and the late game kickoff at 6:30. The Chiefs. The offense has learned how to deal with itself post Tyreek Hill, and we talked about it. They are more patient. Mahomes is willing to take whatever any defense gives them. and he'll take a shot or two down the field, but they're not trying to take shots down the field all the time. And because of that, and I think because of the adjustment period of trying to get to that point, the defense really had to carry the Chiefs a bit. And it got to the point where the Chiefs slipped up, and there was a couple of L's they took because they didn't adjust properly enough. And the defense played well enough to where they could have won the game. Can this defense carry the Chiefs the rest of the way?
In most scenarios, based on how this entire season has gone, I'd answer yes. But the fact that they have to play a Bills team that is on fire right now, since firing their offensive coordinator, the one who was terrible as a quarterback, that being Ken Dorsey. Okay, looking back at that situation right there, the fact that they're playing a team that has been on fire since that point, Josh Allen doing well with his arm and his legs to lead this team. This is a team that just won a Super Bowl last year, being the Chiefs, a team that's won 2 Super Bowls in the last 4 to 5 years. I have to give them their credit where it's due, but their offense is not at the same point as they were 2 and 3 years ago. Rashee Rice has definitely been a great person on the come up here of recent times, is putting up similar numbers to what Cheetah did when he was with the Kansas City Chiefs. Not far behind him in his production this season either, as the 1 and 2 at the top of the AFC, that being Cheetah and Rashee Rice for their respective teams. But when it comes to this defense right here, I just don't think that they can carry them the rest of the way without the offense stepping up to what the productive level was of years past. If they can do that with the offensive side there on Kansas City while doing well on defense, they have a shot. But if it's just the defense carrying them in this game, they're not going to get past the Bills.
Six says, so what are the chances of the Buccaneers-Lions game being bowling ugly? Very little. I'll cop. Very little. I don't think that game will be bowling ugly. I think that game is going to be extremely competitive. Now, for what you just said, on the money. And the reason why I say it's on the money, Christmas Day at home against the Raiders. That defense did more than enough to get a W. But that offense stunk up the joint, and Mahomes stuck up the joint. And that right there is proof where if the Chiefs defense has to carry that offense and the offense gives you nothing or very little, they're gonna be bounced and going home, because the Chiefs offense is now not good enough to overcompensate for mistakes they make. They almost got to play flawless offensively in order to execute and actually have a chance now. Double especially, and this was against a Raiders team that is actually talent-wise a little below the Chiefs. Now we're talking about the Bills, where their talent is a little above them. And I'm not saying that they are far better than Chiefs, but they are a little better than they are. And you're also dealing with a team in the Bills that they do have vengeance on their mind, and they do have, we want to get one on this team on their mind too, because not only did they lose in overtime and Arrowhead to them 2 years ago, but the year before they went to the AFC Championship game and they took it hard on the chin, 38-24. So now you have this unit that's playing the Chiefs for the third time in the playoffs, but this time in Orchard Park, and they now are motivated beyond belief. So that's why I did not ask you, do you think the Bills will be motivated to beat the Chiefs? Because they got plenty of motivation to do so. But I'm loving the fact, and you mentioned, I think, the jump starting point for the Chiefs resurgence, which is the ousting of Ken Dorsey, which unfortunately it needed to happen because the offensive philosophy changed overnight, and so did the fortune of the team, because they went from 11th seed in the AFC to number 2 in about 6 weeks' time. Who do you credit most for the Bills resurgence?
Well, you named it right there. I mean, Ken Dorsey being fired. I think that that's a big part of this turnaround. Not only that, but you have to look at what Sean McDermott's been doing. He's been well known as a defensive coordinator before he became the head coach of the Bills in 2017. Even though they do have a defensive coordinator in place, just like, what happened with those years in New England, doesn't mean the head coach isn't the one calling the plays or having a huge impact on what they do call and how they are, shaped as far as what their defense actually is. So I think their aggressive play calls on the defensive side, I think getting Von Miller back in the swing of things too, after him coming off of that injury from last year, coming back this year, during those first games where they were struggling before they fired Ken Dorsey, it wasn't all just the offense that was struggling. The defense was keeping them close in certain games, but even they weren't playing on their own level of what they were known to be playing over the past few seasons, where they've been having these successful times throughout these seasons. So I think the biggest turnarounds were some of they were getting a little bit more aggressive with their defensive play calling for one, but also I really will say the firing of Ken Dorsey definitely switched things up, because you have different play calling at certain aspects where they're a little bit more aggressive, some where they're a little bit more relaxed, but they've got a little bit more of a balance on Josh Allen's running too. He's not running too much.
Yes,
like
I love it.
That first half of the season, you and I were sitting up here and talking about this, especially me. Yes, way too much. And I was sitting here saying, Cole, I got a feeling that they might not even make it to the playoffs because Josh Allen's going to get hurt. And whether it was us or they heard somebody talking about it, the Bills thought about that and said, if we keep running Josh Allen like this, we're going to run him into the ground. We're not going to have him for the playoffs, and we could potentially endanger his future beyond this season. And what do? They get Ken Dorsey out of there. He was terrible as a quarterback for one. They get him out. They make the right calls for a quarterback that actually has a more promising future than Ken Dorsey ever did as a quarterback. And now look at where you're at now after how you played this past weekend. I think those two things really impacted how we're looking at the Bills right now in their resurgence. And that's why I give it the credit that I do.
Yeah. And also credit to Leslie Frazier, who, of course, is the DC of the Bills. Whatever he's been dialing up, and yes, Sean McDermott does have his hands on it too, because yes, he is a defensive strategist as well. Yeah, kudos to the two of them for getting the defense right, and kudos to the offense getting right, because now they're in sync and they are 2 games away from the Super Bowl. Who do you have for this game? And Mick picks the Chiefs.
I, first of all, don't give Leslie Frazier any credit because of how bad he was of a Minnesota head coach. Okay. Leslie Frazier gets no credit. It goes to Sean McDermott, because those 2.5 years that he was the head coach / interim head coach of the Vikings, what did they do? They didn't do nothing.
Oh, that is ice cold.
So you get that, Leslie Frazier. That is wrong. That you take the okay. Now that we've gotten that out the way, okay. When it comes to the Chiefs getting a victory, I need Taylor Swift to perform the cover of this after the end of this game.
Hell to the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell no, no, to the no, no.
Can you imagine Taylor Swift singing that song there as an away game for this team right here, being the Chiefs? It could very well happen them losing, but I don't think that she's going to be singing the parody of that great Bishop Bullwinkle song. The Bills, if they're going to win, out of all the past few years and the hype that we've seen in the Bills, time is now. Okay. The time is now for Von Miller, even though he has 2 Super Bowls with 2 other teams. Right. And this is more than likely his last dance, because last year was supposed to be Von Miller's last dance and he got hurt. So he, willed himself through the offseason to come back. Started off a little slow, but towards the end of the year, started getting back to old Von Miller status. So especially how he played this past weekend, played pretty well for Von Miller status, as how he's played the past few years. So with that being said, I think the Bills take this game at home. They
Yeah.
definitely are comfortable with the weather. I mean, Josh Allen was throwing darts through the air, like cutting through that thick air like a knife. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody else can play like that in those weathers except for maybe Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick
Because
Mahomes.
look at what he did at Arrowhead this past weekend. I mean, it was just they had both freezing, frigid situations at both of their home games. I think this might be probably out of all of our games in this type of weather, it's going to be one of our closest games in this type of weather for quite some time. This is going to be another game that I feel like this weekend is going to be decided in less than a touchdown of a difference in points of scoring. In my opinion, I've got the Bills winning this game. I think it's going to be a little bit more higher scoring than some of these other games, but I'm going to say 35-31 Bills.
You think it's going to be that high scoring? Okay.
I mean, look at what they put up this past weekend.
Well, it's true. I mean, they put up 31. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, they put up 31, and the Chiefs put up 26. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, this surprisingly, as successful as the Chiefs has been, and as many playoff appearances as they have had, this will be the first road playoff game for Patrick Mahomes. The first playoff road game for him in his career. So you have that going into play, but to me, you have that experience. Plus, does it really get colder in Western New York than it does in Kansas City in January? Not really. So to me, weather wouldn't be a problem. It would just have to be the atmosphere itself. You know, the fact that it isn't Chiefs Kingdom, it's Bills Mafia. It would have to be that. And that's the only advantage that could throw off any team that goes there. So in terms of, experience, no. In terms of possible nerves, I don't think so. In terms of the team can't play in the cold, no. To me, it's just, like I said, I think the Bills are better than the Chiefs slightly. And I think it's that slight difference that's what's going to make the difference in this one.
I'd say the only way that the Chiefs win this game is if they establish the run early. They have to get Pacheco and Edwards-Helaire going early, because in these games that they've lost, they have not been able to get the running backs going. It has been Patrick Mahomes leading the way in rushing yards in certain aspects, and they've been losing those games. There's very few games where Isaac Pacheco has had less than 70 yards rushing and they've won the game.
Right.
So you got to pay attention to that. If we're going into halftime and they're struggling with the running game and they can't get it going in the second half to start it out, they're done.
Yeah.
And the Bills are winning this game.
Agreed.
Because if Josh Allen's going to take off for 50-some yard running gains, and you don't have any type of answer on the other side, and you're just slinging the rock. We just saw with what happened with Dak, 41 of 60, and he threw for 400 yards, but they got decimated by the Packers because they had no running game. So if you cannot get those two running backs going early on, you might as well chalk it up as a dub for Bills.
And that's also what's factoring into this decision too. The Chiefs seem to, for whatever reason, not like to lean on Isaiah Pacheco, but they have proof that when you do, your chances of winning are better. Take, for instance, Saturday night's game. You gave him the rock 24 times. He gave you 90 yards almost. And he established early that you're willing to punch the team in the mouth. Establish early that you're willing to slug with the Bills and your chances are better. But they like to not do that. And when they don't, it's just good. And I'm seeing that. I can see that actually happening Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. And because of those reasons, that's why I'm picking the Bills. Am I rooting for either team? No, I'm actually rooting for a good game, and they seem to give you good games every time they are on the field, whether it's in Arrowhead or in Highmark. So I'm just looking forward to that. And I think I'm looking forward to other things too, because that ends featured attractions. We'll be back right after this.
Next, the chopping block and snowflake of the week. This is Total Football Talk. Join Ryan McCarthy.
I became a Jets fan because Kurt the Frog was my favorite Muppet because he was green, and the Jets wore green. That's how I became a Jets fan.
And Dustin Henry.
ESPN is cashing all in on let's pay a few personalities and we'll just kind of fill in the gaps.
As they walk you through all of the world of sports from their perspective.
The Albany Empire, it's a literal circus.
No credentials required. Where, Ryan, say the tag.
Where you don't need a press pass to talk sports.
Every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. On YouTube and where you can find all podcasts. This is a BS3 Network presentation.
I want to do a TED Talk, but I don't have anything to talk about yet. I'm getting there.
Life is for the living. We're not here that long.
You can learn anything you want to learn without any money spent.
What do I really enjoy? What do I really want out of life?
I am your host, WIZE.
Are you in a life holding pattern? Well, this is for you. Welcome to the Stuck in My Mind podcast. Live every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central. Football, and more football, you say? Well, tune in to Total Football Talk. Join your hosts, Drew Willingham.
You were playing like a dumpster Pelican quarterback.
And Cole Johnson.
It sets up a possible play action. Did you hear that, Dak Prescott?
As they take you through all the paces, both on the field and in the boardroom, of Total Football Talk. Every Tuesday at
9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central.
Exclusively on the Sartoba Media and the Comey Media Incorporated YouTube channel.
There are not many situations where I pull a Ryan McCarthy and toot my own horn, but I will with that previous commercial. Because Cole did like 99.1% of it. I did the 0.9, and I'm proud of the 0.9. Okay? I'm so proud of that 0.9.
Well, hey, your editing skills is on point, no question. Well, with the ever talented Drew Willingham, I'm Cole Johnson. Welcome back to Total Football Talk. Lord have mercy, you are too funny. Let's get to the chopping block, shall we? Oh my. So in a stunning move last Tuesday, this actually happened after we wrapped last recording of Total Football Talk, the Titans decided to fire head coach Mike Vrabel. Now, this would probably kick off a substantial rebuilding for the franchise because word around the campfire is that Derrick Henry might be saying goodbye, and more than likely Ryan Tannehill is saying goodbye to the franchise. Now, Vrabel led the Titans to a 54-45 record and 3 consecutive playoff appearances, including an AFC Championship game appearance in 2019. But after that top-seeded ranked team in 2021, when he was named Coach of the Year, the Titans, in the vernacular of way back in the old school hip-hop days, fell off. They went 7-10 in 2022 and 6-11 this year. Now, the controlling owner and heifer. I'm sorry, my bad. I should not taint my thought process of the team. Amy Adams Strunk. She had this to say about the move that got Vrabel out. With Mike Vrabel, I told him about my decision to make a change at head coach. As I told Coach Vrabel, this decision was difficult as any I've made as controlling owner. I appreciate Mike's contributions to the Tennessee Titans, both on and off the field. Anyone who has ever met him knows how passionate he is and genuine he is. And he's been a strong supporter of the Nashville community. We wish Mike, Jen, of course, that's his wife, and the Vrabel family nothing but the best in the future. Close quote. Mike, let me shorthand this in Adams talk. You weren't doing the job. You cost too much. You got to go. Okay, there we go. Now, my question to you is, where does Mike Vrabel go from being fired by the Titans?
I think to a team in the NFC East. I think that I don't see him going to Atlanta because, more than likely wherever he goes, his offensive coordinator is going to be Artie. Because Artie was his offensive coordinator in Tennessee. And the last time that he had success, real success, was when he, of course, had A.J. Brown and Artie as his offensive coordinator. Right. So looking at that situation right there, unless he decides to go to Philly, which A.J. Brown's already there, and they have a really good team, if they decide to let go of Nick Sirianni, that's an option. If the Cowboys let go of Mike McCarthy and they don't bring in Belichick, there's an option. But I also really hope that he goes to the Commanders because of what they're building in that front office, the fact that they got over $70 million in cap room. I mean, they got a lot of room to bring in some pieces to work around some of these other players they've got in the locker room there. Of course, they're going to have to blow up a lot of positions there. But when it comes to Mike Vrabel going somewhere based on that, I don't think it's going to be the Chargers because there's a lot of talk of Harbaugh going there. I don't want him to go to Carolina because I feel like it's a waste. Like, you're going to want to be somebody who's lower on the totem pole, trying to make a name for yourself to go to Carolina. Somebody who's already established a name like Mike Vrabel or Belichick, unless you're Quinn and that's the only opportunity you get, that would be, who I would say going to Carolina. I really feel like Vrabel's got a really good chance of going to an NFC East team, and I really hope it's the Commanders.
Yeah, I agree. And if he does become a Commanders head coach, you'll like him. Of course, he was with the Texans as well as the linebackers coach, and players loved him. Yeah, he's easy to love, really.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
But if the Eagles fire Sirianni, I think he's got a better chance to go into Philly than the Commanders.
Agreed. From one expatriate to a former Patriots player, now coach, now head coach. So we talked about Bill Belichick being fired or parting with Robert Kraft. In his place will be Jared Mayo. He is the new head coach of the team who has parted ways with Bill Belichick and those 6 rings. Now, he's been the team's linebacker coach under Belichick since 2019, and the team made a succession plan with the extension of Mayo that he signed last offseason when he withdrew consideration for the Panthers head coaching position. Mr. Mayo, the 37-year-old guy, is the first head coach in Patriots history and the 15th overall, and dare I say, a very smart man in not wanting to take the Panthers head coaching job. Now, my question to you is, how much rope does Jared Mayo have as the new Patriots head coach?
I think he's going to have a lot more rope than what Belichick had, because Belichick didn't have enough rope because once Brady was gone, he was kind of exposed at that point over the last 4 seasons. So Jared Mayo's never been a head coach before. Hell, he's never been an offensive defensive coordinator. So going from where he is at a skilled coach position, as a former player, I think he gets a little bit more rope and a little bit more understanding during our rebuilding time, because the Patriots are not going to be able to flip a switch like the Texans did this past offseason and just be as good as they were with a new head coach. Okay, it's not going to happen. I'm sorry, Patriots fans. Yeah. If it does, we all get fooled next year, but I really don't think that's going to happen. I think Jared Mayo gets a decent amount of slack for this. And it'll be an interesting turnaround to see within the next 2 to 4 years if this was a worthwhile coaching move as quick as it was, and to have it in Bill Belichick's contract as this who the successor was, but a smart way to get around the Rooney Rule as well.
Yeah, it is. It is. I guess I guess Robert Kraft was thinking like in The Who, we won't get fooled again.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
Now, Pete Carroll, his 14-year run as Seahawks head coach is gone, and is marking a stunning end to the most successful chapter in the franchise's history. Now, they announced this last Wednesday, and they reached a decision for the coach to move on but he's going to stay on for the team to be an advisor within the organization. They helped the franchise win its only Super Bowl ring 10 years back, compiling a 137, 89, and 1 record in the regular season, and led them to the playoffs 10 times. His 170 career season wins leave him tied for 15th in history, putting him behind only Belichick, Reed, and Tomlin among active head coaches. My question to you, as I will have to leave the recording, it would be: what went wrong in Seattle what went wrong in Seattle, precipitating the firing of Pete Carroll?
Can I hold my answer and get you to give us your snowflake of the week before you leave?
Sure. All right. No problem.
I want to hear your snowflake before you roll out.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. No problem. I could do that. Hold on a sec. Let me see. Where is it? Come on here.
It's my favorite part of the show is when Cole gives a snowflake. Well, probably my third favorite, but it's in the top 3. I got to hear it every time. Yeah, the top 3 of everything I like to hear on Tuesday is Cole snowflake.
All right.
Total football talk.
Well, my brother asked for this. He's going to get it. So we're combining 2 segments into one, and I'll give you my snowflake of the week now before I jet. And if I make you upset in this pick, I apologize, sir. I saw turf on the field. Turf. I mean, I saw a receiver many different times and turf. And I'm directing this to one guy. And the reason why I'm saying it the way I'm saying it is I still can't believe what I saw. In the 48-32 loss that the Cowboys took at the hands of the Packers to eliminate them from the playoffs again for the 13th time since they've won their last championship, they played something I did not recognize. And someone who orchestrated the something that I didn't recognize gets this. Dan Quinn, sit down, son. We catch, but to get endless amounts of yak. I mean, I saw at least 4 or 5 different times where there was a receiver and there wasn't a defender near them within 10 to 15 yards. I get if he's fooled and they're trying to recover. They were fooled and they weren't even within the vicinity of the ball carrier. That is inexcusable. And then what makes it even worse, you are a man-to-man team and you decide into this game in the playoffs, you decide to play zone. If you aren't fired, then it must mean that you have some really incriminating photos of Gerald. Otherwise, you should be out of there. Oh, my gosh. Make me sick. Good gracious. Dan Quinn, dude, you almost will probably have coached yourself out of a position at all in the NFL with that performance or the putrid one thereof that we saw Sunday. Come on, man. Sad.
That was absolutely terrible. And I'm glad that we got to hear your snowflake of the week before you had to roll on out. Cole, my man, as always, these first 20 episodes of this show have been a pleasure. I look forward, as always, to next week, as Tuesday is my new favorite day of the week.
Awesome, brother.
Be safe out there in these streams, and I'll do my best to close it in a way that you will love.
I appreciate that, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it. Bye, everybody.
So with Cole saying that, the question that he had up there for me before with, what went wrong in Seattle after the firing of Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll had a great 14-year run that, culminated with 2 trips to the Super Bowl, winning one of them. He had one of the greatest running backs of our generation, that being Marshawn Lynch. You do what you did there. Then, of course, you had Russell Wilson and what you were able to accomplish with him. It's going to be like a system quarterback, as we found out to be when he went to Denver and what happened in that first year that he was there. Pete Carroll one great career overall coaching in college, especially with USC, and then what he did since he came to the Seattle Seahawks. Of course, with his last season there, the Seattle Seahawks, we saw in that exit interview, he looks like he still wants to coach. And I don't think that the Seahawks are going to be able to bring anybody in. It's going to be able to give that team the type of success that they've had over the past 14 years with Pete Carroll, for one, but also jump in as quick and have the success that they have had, because they've had some 7-9 seasons when there was only 16 games in a year. And they were only 9-8 this year. But when you think about all that, and you put it all in perspective of how Pete Carroll's tenure has been in the NFL, you can't throw shade on it overall. I mean, the man's head coaching record the past 3 years, we'll say, in 2021 was his worst year since 2011 and 2010. His first 2 seasons, he was 7-9. They won the NFC West that first year, which was remarkable, but that just goes to show you how bad the NFC West was. The next year, they were 7-9, and they were third. So it goes to show you how much it improved to that. Then they didn't have another season with 7 wins. Again, that less. It took them another 11 seasons to 2021, where they were 7-10 in the inaugural 17-game season. So looking at that and looking at how he went from there in 2022, elevated to 9-8, got 2 more wins, 2 less losses. But for this season in itself, same record as last year, and they had some bumps in the road, and Geno Smith took a step back, and there was some things that you could argue that there wasn't aggressive enough play calling in certain situations. And I guess with them thinking that the man is 72 years old, as he just turned 72 in the second week of the season this past season, that there's no hope for Pete Carroll to improve, because you can't train an old dog new tricks. So coming into this next season, he's going to be turning 73 during this upcoming season in 2024. There was probably a lot of thought about that in the front office when it comes to Pete Carroll's future. Would he be good in a role as an executive, kind of like what Bruce Arians is doing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? I don't know if he's going to want to do that or not, because if you saw last night's broadcast, the Manning broadcast with Peyton and Eli Manning, in the second quarter, who they bring in? Old Bruce Arians. Now, if it's me, I'm thinking somebody who's working in the front office is going to be at the game, watching the game, as they are part of the moves that are made to get those pieces out there on the field. No, we didn't see him out there because it looked like Bruce Arians was at home during that game. So if it's me, if you're Pete Carroll and you really want to keep coaching, in the aspect of what happened in 2021, it looked like Bruce Arians was kind of done with coaching in some aspects and wouldn't mind taking a check to be part of the front office and have somewhat of an executive role. Pete Carroll doesn't give me that same impression. I think somewhere along this offseason, we could potentially see a trade from Seattle, since he is still under contract, and that's why they kept him in the office like they did. We could potentially see a trade for Pete Carroll to another one of these teams. I hope it's not Carolina. And depending on what happens with Belichick and Vrabel, it could potentially happen in Atlanta. However, it's a little too close to home when it comes to the Seattle, the Seattle Seahawks. So I don't think that they're going to potentially trade him to the Atlanta Falcons, because it'd be a little bit too close to comfort, especially, they're not in the same division. Okay, you got the other team in the NFC South, and they're the West. I just don't think that they're going to trade him within the NFC. If anything, they trade him to the AFC. What other teams are really available in the AFC besides maybe the Titans? And if you're Pete Carroll, I don't think you want to go to the Titans either. There's going to be a lot of red flags coming up during this offseason, but I think one of them is going to be the potential of Pete Carroll getting traded to another team. What do you guys think? Let me know here in the comments if that's the case for you.
Who's giving them the business?
That was for you, Sick Diggy. Now on to the next segment. Now, with that right there, my co-host gave a great one. We're talking about all Dan Quinn and that Dallas Cowboys team. I kind of want to take it there, but at the same time, I think I'm going to go a little bit of a different direction. And I think it's because of the hype that we saw on this team throughout the entirety of the 2023 season, the points they were putting up, the stats they were putting up, what the Cheetah was doing, potentially going to do, setting a record for the wide receiving receptions and yards that still never happened. And the person that I'm going to actually throw in as the snowflake of the week is a big part of how the Cheetah receives his catches and his yards and his touchdowns. And that's the quarterback play of the starting quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. As my pick of the snowflake of the week, I'm picking Tua Tagovailoa from an overhyped quarterback. Well, stats that we will see from an overhyped quarterback is when they are overhyped, they're not going to perform at certain stages, like this one being Super Wild Card Weekend. And they're playing a team that, yes, is the defending NFL Super Bowl champions from last season. However, they're not the same team that they were last season, and especially not the same team when they won the first Super Bowl of years back, because the offense is dramatically different. Their defense is now better than their offense, and in certain situations where it's 4th and 2 and 4th and 3 and 4th and 4, where the team of the Chiefs in the past would go for it on 4th down, we're seeing them punt the ball and trust their defense a little bit more. And in cases like in this past weekend, it's definitely paying off, coming to fruition for them. For the Dolphins, it's not, because besides that one touchdown catch from the Cheetah in the first half to keep them relatively close at that point, the Dolphins, were eliminated based on the play of one, certain players in their defense, but two, their quarterback. And I have to put this on the shoulders of Tua Tagovailoa when it comes to their production and why they didn't get any further. And with that, I have to go with that. That is my pick, and that's going to be who I take into this last commercial break.
The 2-minute drill is next. This is Total Football Talk. Hey, Eagles fan. Join my man Cool McCain and a host of others as they break down every single game, every single week in an objective manner, and also from a fan's perspective as well. Remember, this cast feels just like you. Nobody likes you. And you don't care. Fly, Eagles, fly. Eagles Elite Podcast. Every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and other podcasts. Oh, yes. The tradition, the pageantry, the spectacle, the history, the slut. Wait. I gotta rep my brother's stuff right. All my DMV soldiers, stand up! And welcome to the Commander's Gridiron Report. You want your commanders to be repped right? Well, D. Willie is your man. Commander's Gridiron Report. Every Monday at 3:05 p.m. Eastern, 2:05 p.m. Central. Exclusively on the Sertoba Media YouTube channel. Music by J. Cool.
Where my soldiers? Right side. Commanders. Where my soldiers? Left side.
Join the transporter to Hades.
Your butt and gut becomes one.
Join the reformer of hooker whores.
This is my daughter, Placenta Booty Johnson.
Join the bronze god.
Whenever you are in distress, take off your baseball cap and throw it in the air.
Join your very own superhero of broadcasting, Chris Bass.
So whatever color crayon they get, they palm it and do 2 circles, and that translates to, I can be the black people.
As she takes you through the week's paces in Baseline. Live every Saturday at 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central, Pacific Time Zone people, just stay asleep when this is on live and just catch the recording. Oh, I'm sorry. Exclusively on the Chris Base YouTube channel.
Welcome back to the Football Talk as we are now at the final segment.
Total Football Talk.
As long as it's one. Oh, it's great. I love it. I hope it actually is recording. Listening to it.
And here at the post game, Cole and I have talked in depth about what happened this past weekend and our picks for the upcoming weekend. And just to kind of go through them one last time, in the Texans and Ravens game, I've got the Ravens. In the Bucks and Lions game, I got the Bucks. In the Packers and 49ers game, I've got the 49ers. And in the Chiefs and Bills game, I'm going to go with the Bills. Those are the recap of the 4 picks that I have in my closing thoughts. And again, if the Chiefs want to change that up, they're going to have to establish that running game if they want to have any chance of beating the Bills, because both of these teams can mother-fathering play out there in cold weather. They are not scared of playing out there in the cold. Josh Allen can cut it right through that cold air like a knife and put that ball in places like it's 85 degrees sunny out there on that field. I've seen it, you've seen it, and we've all seen it out there on these streams of the TVs. Now, when you think about that, when you think about the Packers and 49ers, there's some people like Mickey Delaney out here in the comments earlier in the show that will tell you, that will mother, father, and tell you that the Packers are going to beat the 49ers. And they can. Well, they absolutely can. Will they? I don't think so. They're not going to be able to do what they did to the Cowboys this past weekend. We'll have to see if I'm wrong or if this is absolutely their destiny to run the table this season and go to the NFC Championship the following week and play whether it's the Lions or the Bucks for whoever comes out of this weekend to have a chance to go to the Super Bowl. Exciting times. We could potentially see a new champion this year. It would be sweet. My pick I would love to see would be the Lions and the Texans, because then we are definitely going to get a brand new Super Bowl champion this year. Just like watching the World Series this past year, we knew we were going to have a brand new champion as well, which is cool when it comes to baseball. But for football, we don't always have that luxury because dynasties and super teams, similar to the NBA style of super teams, are built. Even though NBA, you have to have like 3 star players to make a super team. In the NFL, you need like 10. It's a big difference. 5 on each side of the ball potentially to make the difference. But we could see something special this upcoming weekend. And from what Cole and I have definitely showcased on this show, definitely could come into fruition. I've given some long-winded answers to some of you out there today, as now we have a show with less teams to talk about because we're in the playoffs. Some of our answers had to be a little bit longer today in order to get this show to make it to 3 hours. But without those of you in the comments, without Cole Johnson, being here for the majority of the way until about 10 minutes ago where he had to step out for some work reasons, which is understandable, this wouldn't be possible without you guys. So again, as I say on every episode, I appreciate you guys in the comments for being there. I appreciate Cole Johnson especially for, being the mad scientist and creating such a show to where we can showcase on both of our platforms, help them both grow with the content for one, but also give us a place for both of us to sit down and talk about something we both thoroughly enjoy, and that is the sport of football. We got the NFL for the next month or so, talking about the remaining playoff games, of course, the Pro Bowl, and then we have, the little bit of off season and the UFL to talk about. As the UFL, the XFL, and the USFL have merged into the UFL, and that'll be one thing we'll be able to talk about for spring football. So for those of you out there that don't have much great coverage for it, we are looking forward to doing our best to accommodate that in the coming month or so, as that starts up here in March, and we'll have to preview a little bit before it gets started, similar to how we did with the NFL season. Now, I can't give you the same type of awesome speech that Cole Johnson gives you by keeping your head up, because the way he does it and the way he articulates his words in there, I just can't pull that off in this moment. But what I can tell you is two things before we roll on out of here. One, we got to look at one awesome outro Cole Johnson has definitely bestowed upon us. But, you know, there's only one thing that I have to usually tell you, and that is to stay safe out here in these streets. Psych! We're not done yet, because I have one more thing I really have to tell you before we really watch the outro. And that is, guys, no matter what platform you're watching on right now, whether it's Twitter, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Twitch, any of those three, or in the syndicated parts throughout all the other platforms, please do us a favor. Click that like button, share button, and subscribe button to these platforms to help us out there with the algorithms. We greatly appreciate it. And now, as always, stay safe out there in these streets.